Welcome to another OG55 Live. I'm with the Italiana. We're also with Jay Shear, host of the Story Geeks here on the channel. We're taking your questions. We have a lot of questions actually already in the chat. We're going to break them all down up next on OG55 Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
Jay, do you remember the electrical parade? Did you ever see that in person?
Oh, yeah, a bunch of times. In fact, I saw it in Walt Disney World like 2 years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Love that parade.
Yeah, it's a classic. My favorite parade is Paint the Night. And I do not understand why they have not brought that back, because it is one of the best things you've ever seen in your life.
I don't know why, like, any Disney park right now there's like not a parade in every park. Like I don't get it, especially a nighttime parade. Come on. Like I would take a nighttime parade over a day parade anytime.
I totally agree with you, and it takes so much off the attraction load. You know what I mean? Like you can get on attractions when there's a parade going on. So yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. Jay, it's good to have you back, brother. It's good to have you on the live.
It's always
show.
Good to be with you guys.
If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, if you want to promote the short film, all that good stuff, let them know at home.
Yeah, you can follow me at X or Instagram at JShear, all one word. It's all one word combined. And then we also have the trailer for No Vacancy is out. Now, this is going to be really confusing. It's on the Condor Blue channel, which is Kondor Blue, BLUE. And you can check it out there. You can also check it out on the Crater Crew channel, which is much harder to find. Just go find the Condor Blue one. But then I have a whole series going on how stories work with Jay Shear, where I'm actually covering what I learned directing my first film. And that's been really fun to do. So go check out How Stories Work with Jay Shear. I got a bunch of stuff on there. And follow me on Twitter. Hit me up with questions. And we'll talk nonsense on there. Sounds fun to me.
Yep, absolutely. And after the show, I will be linking the trailer in the description below. So easy, just click on it. Good to go. And then also, everybody at home, if you have a question for Jay in terms of like his first, movie, directing his first movie and everything, feel free to ask that in the chat too. I think it'd be kind of interesting, So.
And if you have a great question, I might make a whole video about it. By the way, if you have a really good question about it, I'll be like, okay, cool. I should just do a video on this.
Absolutely. And down below, we got the Italiana looking like you just stepped off the Disney Wish or something. You over there in Castaway Cay on location, George.
That's how I do it. You know it. I come in here with style, and honestly, for all you folks, I don't know if you could tell by my camera. Yes, this is plaid. See, it's a plaid shirt.
There he is.
I'm rocking the plaid.
It's a nice one too, bro. It's a nice one.
Thank you.
I like it. If you let everybody home know they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. That's a great one. It's a little strip clubby, but it's all good,
I mean, look at my outfit today. It fits.
I was just gonna say you can't play that too often, or else we'll get George doing this over.
Exactly. Oh man. So Andrew Kellogg here says, "What do you think? Why? Oh, what is it? What do you think? Why? Okay. Why do you think? I think is what he's trying to ask. Why do you think Disneyland Paris failed back in the 1990s?" Andrew, I think it failed back in the 1990s because it's a cultural thing. I mean, there were a lot of protests, protesting the Disney coming into that area of the world. They didn't want that the Americana in their backyard. We saw a lot of, you can Google it. There's a lot of imagery of tractors and stuff trying to block the entrance. It's just a culture thing. I think they really, the French really weren't down for it initially. And as time went on, they kind of fell in love with it, and now it's kind of pretty popular. It's doing really, really well. So it's kind of cool, How can you not fall in love with Disney? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, I think really that's what it was though. I just think it was an area of the world where they really weren't into it, and I think as time went on, they kind of grew to love it. You know, and they have a great park over there with their castle park is amazing. The studio park, we won't talk about that one, but you know, the castle park's amazing. But George, what do you think about it? Why did Disneyland Paris fail in the 1990s?
Yeah, I think it was just during those particular times, the culture was very different. They weren't used to anything of that nature. So it's like, okay, why are the Americans coming over with their kind of US type of parks and kind of spoiling our French culture, so to speak? And, you know, they weren't really giving it a chance, but I'm so glad that they did because, you know, look what it has become. And me personally, I think that Disneyland Paris has one of the best looking castles, I will say, with the type of backdrop of how they have the hills in the back,
Right.
how it's very layered. And of course, they have that spectacular night show with the fireworks, the pyrotechnics, the drones. You know,
Yeah.
so Disneyland Paris came a very long way, and I'm excited to see where it moves forward. Only if only we can get now the domestic parks to get a little bit of what Disneyland Paris has. You know,
Yeah.
I'd be a lot more happier. And thank you kindly, Kiki and Luca. I do look fine. I do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, George is finer than wine. Finer than wine. Now, Jay, I know,
I really am just like wine. I mellow with age.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Now, Jay, are you familiar with the Paris Park at all? From what you've seen or whatever? The
Yeah,
Disneyland Park?
in fact, I did I got my MBA in the late aughts, so 2007 through 2010, and I got my undergraduate degree in like the early aughts, and it was actually a topic of conversation amongst business people about why. Because it's like 10, 15 years removed from what happened with Disneyland Paris or Euro Disney at the time, right?
Yeah.
And it really was exactly what OG said. A lot of people studied it. A lot of people put in the work to see like what exactly happened here. And it's interesting to see how Disney has taken the parks and done their own thing in each different country that they operate in.
Right.
They do the Disney thing, but they do it in a way that the culture there will respond to. And they oftentimes give people a way to make it their own. So like Duffy the Bear is like crazy popular. Like that whole series of things is crazy popular in Japan. And like out here, we're like, yeah, Duffy's fine. Like whatever. I mean, like, but it gives that community a chance to really make Disney their own, but while bringing in the whole values of the company with them. So it's a really genius strategy that they've learned over the years, and they're
Well, and I
killing
just
it.
have to just correct you, Jay, really quick. You said Duffy. You said Duffy is fine. I'm sorry. According to Kiki and Luca, I'm fine.
You're fine with the little flame. He's fine with the meh. Fine.
Yeah.
And Gugam 32 here says, I think there should be a one ride or attraction limit for each Disney IP. Little Mermaid, for example, has a ride now, so it no longer needs its own show. Now, here's the thing, Gugam, that I kind of respectfully disagree on this, because I think that stifles creativity. I got to be honest. I think that when you put a cap on something like that, like a hard rule, like, oh, well, we already have a Toy Story ride, we can't build another one. Look, if we would have had that rule in place, you wouldn't have got Midway Mania. And Midway Mania is actually a way better attraction than Buzz Lightyear. But Buzz Lightyear came first. So you technically wouldn't have had Midway Mania if we had this rule in place. So I respectfully disagree. Now, look, there are limits to that, obviously. You don't want to go overboard, with these IPs. I do think with some of these, they do go a little overboard. I think Toy Story is one of them. I mean, you have 2 attractions. I mean, pretty much Toy Story is represented in just about every single parade. And it's kind of a little bit much, right? But I think to have a hard kind of cap, I think really reins in the creativity. I think you got to let your Imagineers kind of go with things. And so I just respectfully disagree. What about you, Jay? What do you think? I mean, if they have a Woody's ride, a Woody or Buzz ride, should they be restricted to just keep it at that, and he can't build a second one or a show? Or do you think that maybe they should open it up and just kind of depending on what the area calls for? What are your thoughts on that, brother?
I think there's merits to both sides of this argument, right? I think that The issue that I see is what you don't want is you don't want to have some IP get so much attention that other IP is like pushed into the background that should be actually brought to the forefront. And so in that regard, I actually agree with the sentiment. Like, let's not just build like all of, like, for example, if all of a sudden there was just like a giant Marvel park and it was only Marvel, it'd be like, okay, like that's fine. But it's cool to go from land to land. Like the original idea for Disneyland was you could be transported to all of these different places, not just Fantasyland, but you can also go to Frontierland. You can also go to Adventureland. And I think that allows you to really gravitate towards some of the things that you're nostalgic for, some of the things that you are excited about. So I don't think that there should be a hard and fast rule, but I do think that a lot of times Disney will rely too heavily on IP when they're building stuff. I was really happy to see Mickey and Minnie's actually get greenlit. I love Mickey and Minnie's. I know it's controversial. Some people don't like it, but like that was like, hey, we're taking our original IP and we're creating a brand new ride with it. Fantastic. I love to see that. So yeah, I think you can be, there's arguments on both sides as long as we don't get so duplicated into one kind of IP. I think we're good.
Absolutely. Well said. And George, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Jay. I feel like, there's two sides of the spectrum where you can do something overboard or to less of something. So yeah, so if you just focus on just one particular IP, then it does hinder the creativity for other IPs to kind of get a chance. It's almost like that smaller, scrawny, weaker kid in gym class. It's like, pick me. And then he's like left standing. And it's like the poor SOB just didn't get a chance, it's like, but yeah, yet at the same time, as part of the creative side, if they were to have stopped at Buzz Lightyear or even Midway Mania, we wouldn't have gotten Toy Story Land. Now, I do know a lot of people have their strong opinions on Toy Story Land. I really like it. I don't absolutely love it. I feel like they could have done so much more with it, and you can kind of start to see the transition when the budget started to really take forth at WDI of how much they could actually spend, and Toy Story Land was a product of that, unfortunately. But yeah, we wouldn't have gotten Slinky Dog. We wouldn't have gotten the Woody's Lunchbox, which I do. It's a very simple quick service, but I actually enjoy it. It's a quick service I enjoy. But at the same time, I would love to see a lot of IP that is very popular that hasn't been touched in the parks yet. Like, I would love to see more Tangled. I would love to see, honestly, as big as Frozen is, I rarely see anything in the domestic parks with Frozen right now, which is very interesting, being that every single international park has something of Frozen.
It's crazy. They were pouring a bunch of Frozen stuff into Disneyland Resort when the movie was out and it was doing bonkers money, but it was all temporary stuff. We got like these like the snow thing in the stage in the sound stage building. Remember that in Hollywoodland, and then we got the Broadway thing in the Hyperion. And there were things with the parade and all that, but we never got a ride and an attraction. So yeah, I would love to see a Frozen attraction or just a full blown Arendelle or something. I think they've done great stuff with that overseas. So why not bring it to California or bring it to Orlando? So it'd be cool. CSRS here says, assuming Disney gets the Marvel rights back for Walt Disney World, and that's from Universal. Universal, just for everyone at home that isn't aware, east of the Mississippi, Universal has the Marvel theme park rights. So Disney is very limited as to what they can do over there with Marvel. It says here the rights back to Disney World and does a bigger, more encompassing land for Hollywood Studios and decides to clone it for DCA in the Symbol lot. What should replace the outgoing Avengers campus? And then he continues part 2. Would they also retheme Mission Breakout or demo the tower and build something new entirely? See, here's my thing, CSRS. I think they're kind of already committed with Avengers over there. And that's the issue that you have, like, right? So if you get rid of Avengers Campus, now what do you do with the Breakout? What do you do with Breakout? That's a very popular ride now. I would keep it Avengers Campus. I would just kind of tweak the direction a little bit, right? Maybe not Avengers Campus. Maybe make it like a superhero, more of a generic superhero theme, like a Marvel superhero. So it's a little bit less focusy on the Avengers, which might not always be relevant, because the Avengers are kind of right now they're not like they were, 4 or 5 years ago. So Universal actually kind of has a better approach to it with Islands of Adventure, where it's a superhero island. Do something a little more vague like that, but obviously just keep it Marvel, and I think you would be fine. And then I would encroach into Hollywoodland a little bit. You have a lot of room there. Hollywoodland is kind of expendable right now. I mean, there's not too much going on. So that's kind of the way I would go. I would save the expansions, like in the symbol lot and things like that, for something different. I would do maybe a Latin America land expansion for DCA. I mean, it's crazy to me that you don't have a bigger Latin representation in a park about California. That blows my mind. I would love to see a quaint little Mexican village, where these little streets with the food vendors and the music, and it's kind of like DCA's New Orleans Square, but with that Latin flavor. I think that'd be beautiful. That's the route I would go. But keep Marvel where it's at. It's already established in that area. You can expand on it. But what do you think, George? Would you get rid of Avengers Campus and move it to the symbol lot? Would you keep it, not keep it? What's your plan? You're Joe Rody. What do you do, brother?
Well, then let me go get my ear pierced so I can get one of those iconic. Yeah, here's how I feel about Avengers Campus. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest with you. I enjoy Mission Breakout. Web Slingers is okay, but it just feels like, for me, it's just a walking path, just to go from one side of the park to the other, to be honest with you. There's nothing really aesthetically pleasing there for me, based off of what was there. I'm not a big fan of the smaller kiddie rides or everything, but aesthetically, I loved the Bugs Land. I loved how it felt like you were shrunk down to the size of a bug, and you looked up in the transparency of everything, where it's like you're looking at these blades of grass and these that giant circus animal cookie box or what have you, or but it was so for me, there's always a bittersweet moment where I love to see something new. I just think that they could have done something so much better with it.
Yeah.
But they really need to get out of the notion of just sticking with the Avengers. Yeah. Marvel is a huge franchise, especially moving forward, where there's a possibility that we're, with X-Men and Fantastic Four and now Deadpool. There's so much more to Marvel than just the Avengers. And I feel like Disney is, again, just like what they did with Star Wars, they're crippling themselves in the parks by just sticking to one specific franchise within this licensing agreement between Lucasfilm and Marvel. So having said that, but I'm probably going to sound like a hypocrite after saying all that, but yeah, I would leave it where it's at, unfortunately. But because I actually do enjoy. I actually do enjoy Mission Breakout, because if that's the notion to keep that there, then fine. I would definitely. For a third park, though, I wouldn't just do all Marvel, because just as Jay had touched upon, when you over cannibalize something,
right?
It's like where you just have all Marvel. It's like, yeah, you go through the different lands, but essentially you're not really getting a different feel of anything else. So, yeah. So me personally, I'm still sticking to my guns. I would love to see the third park be something incorporated with the villains. I would love just to see an all kind of like a Dark Kingdom type of thing, where each land has something specific to a particular villain. And that would be that would be for me. But before even that goes, which I do think eventually a third gate will happen at Disneyland, but they have to flesh out DCA more with an expansion.
100%. What do you think, Jay? What should they do with Avengers? Should they get rid of Avengers Campus and build another superhero area nearby with more land? Or
first of all, shout out to CSRS, because this is a Disney Parks fan question. What if they move this thing over to this place and we redo this? That is awesome, man. I love it. Love it. And I would say a couple things. The first thing I would say is it is an absolute tragedy that there is nothing Coco related to what you were talking about, OG, with the richness of Hispanic culture in Los Angeles. Don't understand that at all. Why is there not something there that would fit that bill? For such a beautiful aesthetic that they could put out there too. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. So is this likely to happen? No, it's not likely to happen. But if it were to happen and Marvel got a expanded land, I think Marvel has a lot of room for expansion because I do think that the X-Men are going to make a really big splash when the X-Men come out. I also think it'd be wild to have a Deadpool ride.
Oh,
That would be a wild, wild thing. Especially if they made it like not for kids and you had to be like 13 to get on or something.
and you can get away with that too, Jay, like in a DCA kind of park, right?
I know you totally can. You totally can. So here's what I think is perhaps one of the best original Disney IPs that is vastly underutilized, and that is the Society for Explorers and Adventurers. So if you were going to take all of that stuff and move it out, I would say you retheme that whole area to be like sort of like an Adventurelandy feeling Society of Explorers and Adventurers type area. We already have seen fantastic examples of what like Mystic Manor is, and what's the other one? Is it Phantom Manor,
Yeah.
Mystic Manor? Just really, really, really cool stuff. And I love that particular aesthetic that fits kind of into the Jungle Cruise kind of deal. And like George says, there's something about like when you walked into the Bugs Land. What was it actually called? Was it called Bugs Land?
A Bug's
Bugs
Land.
Land, yeah.
Bugs Land, yeah. When you walked into that area, which by the way had my favorite planter in the entire park, and they demolished it when they did Avengers Campus. I love it's all the native California plants.
And I remember you were saying you and your wife have your favorite planners and everything,
It was
right?
right there. It was right there. Right along the side where there was it's tough to be a bug. You would walk around the side, and there was it was just all. If you're ever going to see bees at Disneyland, it was in that area, or at DCA. It was in that area because it was all natural plants to the area, right? Like to the California area where you'd find that. Just gorgeous. Anyway, I think you already had like the Hollywood Tower of Terror has a similar aesthetic to Jungle Cruise. Not exactly the same, a little bit kind of different time frame. But I am bummed out that there's not more. If you've ever been to, I don't know if you guys went this last time. I'm sure George has been, but Jungle Cantina. What's it called?
The Skipper Canteen.
Yeah, Skipper Canteen. Yeah. Love it. Like it's amazing. Like to be immersed in that kind of theming, I think is super cool, and it's an original IP that Disney came up with themselves. So I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that theme. I love that Adventureland, exotic kind of vibe. That's what kind of bums me out. Like with like Disneyland is like our Adventureland is so like not shoehorned, but so like boxed in. God, I wish they could really branch that out and go just crazy with it because it's such a great theme. I love it.
So fantastic.
It's amazing. CSRS here continues with a two-parter. CSRS, by the way, Jay, is always on point with his questions. He's always really good with his questions. Yeah, he says here, could the e-ticket for Disneyland's Avatar Land maybe be an evolved version of the original Quinjet Avengers ticket with improved capacity? Continued on to next post. Do you think Disneyland's Avatar Land would get a boat ride for the D ticket, or maybe they would get a different type of ride? And if so, what would it be? So yeah, that would be interesting if they can figure out the Quinjet concept. And Jay, I don't know if you were familiar with this Quinjet thing, but you were supposed to board in Avengers Campus. It was the Avengers e-ticket. Yeah. The original concept, you were supposed to board a Quinjet somewhere down during the ride. Your Quinjet gets hit. It blows up and everyone's seat you have an ejector seat.
No
so
way.
If I'm sitting next to you and I we eject and we go separate ways, in our own little seat, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or like a jetpack or something, and I thought it was a great concept, but I guess the Imagineers had a really hard time balancing the show of it, and the logistics and the operations of the capacity of getting people through it, fast enough. But that would be a really cool, that ride system would be dope. Just for not even just for Marvel, you can do that like CSRS were saying for Avatar. That would definitely work. Do I think we'll get a boat ride as well? Maybe. If we get a full blown Pandora, we should get a more thrilling e-ticket, and then we can get the more slow, chill kind of boat ride like Florida has. I actually liked the Navi River Journey. I really liked it.
He really did.
Yeah, no, I loved it. It was just this real slow, chill. I'm an atmosphere guy though. I like that stuff, and I was fine going through the slow kind of the slow scenery and just having the bioluminescence and everything. I thought it was gorgeous. So if we get something like that here in California, my gosh, I would love it. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I absolutely. Well, first off, let me just say that's actually very interesting to kind of have the original concept of the Avengers e-ticket to be incorporated with Avatar, because it could work if the Imagineers could get that kind of the mechanism to kind of work. Because I do know that they had a lot of issues with the actual ride patent itself. Like they had the patent for it, but it just something like the technical issues. If we thought that Rise was a big a big shutdown, I mean, I'm for sure this would have a lot of problems like right out the gate. But if they can get it to work out the bugs and kinks, I think it could very very well be part of Avatar, especially kind of if you use it like for the Banshees or the Ekron, or the I forget the terminology for the water creatures and Way of Water. If everyone kind of makes it seem like you're all starting off as a group, and then you just kind of fly off or swim off separately, so that kind of like it breaks off and you kind of go on your own little adventure through Pandora, whether it's underwater or by air. I think that'd be really kind of cool. Then as far as like for like a D ticket attraction, I think that pretty much is a give and take. That if you make a brand new land, they usually have like an E ticket, and then you kind of have like a smaller D ticket. So I would think more so it would be a boat ride. But I think honestly Disneyland would thrive on a indoor kind of dark bioluminescent boat ride that the Navi River Journey is.
Can't beat it. Those Disney boat rides with the bromine smell, that it just
which I am glad, because Navi River Journey was an attraction that OG didn't get to see the first day we went to Animal Kingdom.
Right.
So, and then living with the land was one at Epcot, and I was so bummed, because I wanted him to specifically see those, because they're pure Walt Disney World. You can't find them in any other Disney park right now. But so when we were able to go the second days at Animal Kingdom and Epcot, I made sure that whenever he didn't get to see the first days, he got to see the second. So I'm glad he was able to go on Navi.
Yeah, it's amazing. Animal Kingdom is an amazing park, absolutely amazing. What do you think, Jay, in terms of bringing Pandora here to California? What kind of rides would work, not work?
Well, they've got a big problem on their hands, and that is that they don't have a lot of room, right? And I think that this is here's the big issue. Once you've been to WDW and you see what room can do for you, what space can do for you, it makes it very difficult to imagine what that could look like at Disneyland, because Disneyland does not have a lot of that space. Now, how Disneyland utilizes its space is insanely good. Like, it's amazing how well they utilize their space. But there's not a lot of room for like a Jungle Cruise attraction anymore, right? And I think the biggest thing that bummed me out about being in Pandora at WDW, which I've only been to one time, is that it feels a little bit on the smaller side, even in Florida, to be honest with you. And some of that is because the line for Flight of Passage is so intense, and you go wind through so many things, and it's always so long that it feels like the land is actually smaller, because you almost can't walk around without looking for it, without seeing the line for that attraction. And I think if they want to do it at Disney, what I would love to see them do is do something that's like multi-layered. And I'd almost love for it to be something where, how would I say this? That there's different things happening through the land that you can always see. So if, let's just say you built it up on 3 stories, like, right? This is crazy, because this is not even like probably a thing that's realistic. But you built it up on 3 stories, and there was the boat, the Navi River Journey actually went through the 3 stories and wound through bridges, and like people who were going to like go eat at a restaurant would walk over the bridge. That's the kind of thing that I would love to see, more kinetic kind of things at Disney. And I'm not sure how you do that without having lots of room. But if they're able to pull off some, I would hate for it to be like, here's this thing tucked away in a corner, and Pandora is cool because it feels like another world.
Right.
As soon as it starts to feel like another little tiny like area, I think you've lost something. You know, if it feels
Correct.
like I haven't been to the Moana experience that's now been released out in WDW, but that feels too small for like what a Pandora needs to be, right? So that's my only thing. I don't know how they're going to pull that off.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough in Disneyland to get that scope and that scale. You know,
Yep.
it's gonna be really tough. We'll see how that works out. If we get a land, we don't even know. They keep calling it an experience, but
Yeah.
I'm still kind of bullish on the land though. you
Okay,
know?
I have a very risky question for you fellas.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
In the moment,
In that outfit, how can you ask us a risky
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Risky's my middle name. It's like in the moment when Iger was going through like all the the challenges and obstacles that when he first started back as CEO.
Right.
Do you think he kind of got a little bit ahead of himself and got caught up in the moment just to try to gain back some of the attention from the crowds and what have you? And he may have mentioned Avatar a little bit too soon before it even got fleshed out as a full project.
Absolutely. I mean, I still think it's going to happen because Avatar is a.
Oh yeah,
a big,
it's still going to happen. But do you
yeah.
think he said it? Do you think he said it a little bit too soon before
yeah.
actually? Yeah,
Oh no, yeah, we know because I didn't Daddy Josh even say that? Like didn't he find out about it like 10 minutes before the announcement? Didn't he say something like that?
Well, he said I talked to Josh early this morning, just today, and like he was going through like all the IPs of what the sequels were going to bring to the studio, like Toy Story 5, Zootopia 2, Frozen 85, like those kind of things. So it's like, but yeah, it was that day he had a meeting, a private meeting, just the two of them.
Yeah. Oh no, I think he wanted to it was that first quarterly earnings call. He wanted to go, as George says, balls to the wall. Yeah. And he wanted this big announcement. They had nothing. They didn't know what it was. And that's probably why they went with the word experience, because they didn't know what it was they don't even know what it is, Yeah. So
this is I was ranting about Disney PR on Twitter. This is the problem, right? Like it used to be that Disney PR controlled the narrative and went like, we know when you're going to be excited about this now. We know when you're going to be excited about this now. And then you just hit a little button and we'd all go crazy. Like, this is amazing. Now what Disney PR has been doing is, look, people are talking about that thing. We'll make an announcement. People are talking about that thing over there. We should make an announcement. So instead of it feeling like they're ahead of the curve and they're the ones that are dictating what Disney culture should be, it feels like they're reacting to whatever normal culture is, whatever the culture is in the place they're building the thing. So everyone's talking about Avatar, we have an Avatar ride. Everyone's talking about Black Lives Matter, we have a Tiana ride. Like literally they just pick up whatever news story is circulating and they go, we have something for that. And it's like, wait a minute, did you plan this out, or did you like react to whatever was being talked about and then jump on it? And I think that the former is better than the latter, right? It's better when we are kept in the dark, because as long as we're kept in the dark and it's like a surprise to us, it's like receiving a Christmas gift on Christmas morning. Whereas when it's just reacting to whatever's in the culture, it feels like they're chasing clout or something like that, right? Correct. And I think that's the part where it's like, no, Disney, you be the clout maker. Don't chase the clout. That's all I want from your PR.
Yeah. Oh, well said. Well said. Wow. I kind of mentioned that a little bit in our video yesterday, right, George? Like with when fans were talking about like Disney's response to Epic Universe, and I'm like, but that's so reactionary, though. Yes. They got to do the Disney thing and not just be like, oh, Universal's doing that, let's react to that. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And it's a big problem, and we've seen it with Star Wars too. It's like, Colin Trevorrow, you got a hit movie, come on over, direct episode 9. Patty Jenkins, come on over, and then it just doesn't work out.
Yep, doesn't work.
Yep. CSRS here continues with Universal is doing a SpongeBob land for their kid park in Texas. Is it possible the SpongeBob land could be cloned to Florida and Hollywood as a Simpsons replacement? Quick story, though. I don't think I've ever told this story before, but when I was younger, I've said many times I wanted to be an animator when I was growing up, when I was a kid. And we had a family friend who was like kind of in the business. So he got me these like internships at these studios pretty early. I mean, I was like 17 or something. Like I was a kid, But I interned at Nickelodeon in Burbank for like a year or something. And it was around the time that SpongeBob, I don't even think it was released yet. I'm dating myself like crazy, but it wasn't even released yet. But I was interning at Nicktoons or whatever, and they had like, I'd walk by and I'd see all like the stand-ups for it and stuff. And it was like just ready to roll out, you know? And I remember looking at this ugly little sponge going, this thing is going to flop so hard. Like this thing, this thing is not gonna be a hit. Not gonna be a hit. And here we are, dude. Like how many years later? Like 30 years later, it's like the biggest thing.
Good thing you didn't put no money down on that, OG.
I'm telling you, man. It was so funny. I was walking through and I'm like, oh man, this thing is gonna flop so hard. It's not even funny. And here we are. You know, it's the biggest franchise. Yeah, I mean, look, SpongeBob is big. It's big. It's big. It's big business. And if it does well over there at the kid park, I could see them cloning it. You know, they could do for the Simpsons land. I kind of hope they get a little more ambitious, though, to replace Simpsons. We heard from our friend Theme Park Wizard that they were considering maybe the Universal Classic Monsters, you know, area for that spot. I would like something a little like more on that end, a little more ambition, a little more fleshed out, a little more immersive than a SpongeBob area. But we'll see. But what are your thoughts on that, George?
Honestly, for the Florida one, I mean, I know they're not going to do it, but I would love for them to, as much as I'm a huge Simpson fan, if you're going to do the Simpsons, you kind of have to go balls to the wall. And unfortunately, this land does not have a great depict representation of the show. It just doesn't. But I would love to kind of see it go back to the Universal roots with Back to the Future. Honestly, I would love for them to go back to the Future. Again, you know, I'm for sure like the film part of it is outdated, you know, what have you. But I mean, they could always revamp it and, you know, maybe utilize possibly like some sort of AI, you know, to revitalize the characters, maybe. Because with Back to the Future, really, you don't necessarily have to just go by the trilogy. You know, you can kind of create any kind of thing and just maybe have Doc Brown be part of the queue or, you know, be part of, you know, and then just kind of create something in your own kind of way.
As long as we have him saying roads, we don't need roads. I'm good. It's a hit ride for me. What do you think about that, Jay?
I think a couple things. I think that it's interesting because we're talking about The Simpsons and we're talking about SpongeBob, and both of those feel like slightly
yellow,
very yellow, and also kind of slightly like past. They're the past. They're not the future, right? They don't feel like the future to me. The things that I think that Universal really needs to revitalize really badly. I'm glad you said Back to the Future, George. 100% agree. I think they need to. The fact that Universal has not been trying to build a Universal Monsters franchise that they then can put into their parks is kind of insane to me. I mean, the Universal Monsters are some of the best IP that Universal has. Some of these classic monsters. The other thing that I think that they should actually really pursue, and they talked about this being a part of Epic Universe. I don't think it's ever been confirmed, but I do believe that it's another thing that is like would make $1 bajillion right now, and that is the Lord of the Rings IP. The fact that nobody's touching that in a theme park space is completely mind-blowing to me. So if I were Universal, what I'd be concentrated on is bringing better Jurassic Park experiences to the parks. I love George's idea of Back to the Future. I would bring in Universal Monsters and like make it legit. And then I would try to get an IP like Lord of the Rings to really infuse into the parks in a way that would be like, I mean, talk about if you got Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, like you have the entire fantasy audience is like in your pocket, you know?
Oh, and Lord of the Rings is really perfect for like an epic universe. Like, how do you don't get any more epic than Lord of the Rings?
That's right. That's true.
That's like perfect for that part, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And hey, you never know. That's a Warner Brothers property, right? I believe. So if Comcast makes that move, if you know a big if, you know, and if they even get, you know, the regulatory process is gonna be crazy for that, but if they do get that, I mean that would be something that would be pretty interesting.
Be huge, yeah.
Yeah, Kiki and Luca here says OG said Kaylee and maybe are a breath of fresh air in the chat. I suppose than that I am a lingering fart. No, Kiki and Luca, we love you very much. You have an amazing wit, Kiki and Luca. You crack us up in all the shows. We do love you in the chat, brother. Oh, and we did mention maybe, and she has a. I don't think Jay has ever seen the maybe drop. Let me see.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, we got a special maybe drop. So I'll go ahead and we'll
Cause I'm that girl that drives you crazy, but you're killing me alone. Got to thinking maybe alone. Got to thinking maybe alone. Got to thinking maybe.
There we go. Maybe.
I love it.
Yeah. Had to do a maybe drop. CSRS here says, would Universal be allowed to swallow up both Warner Brothers and Paramount? No way. I mean, Disney technically owns much more than those three combined. Yeah. Universal is going to have a hard time just swallowing up one of these because Universal isn't just Universal. Universal has Comcast connected to that beast already. And yeah, they're not swallowing both. There's no way. What do you think, George? You think they'll be able to get both of these bad boys?
That's a high feat to
Right.
do. I mean, they're lucky that they're even going to try to get one,
I agree.
let alone both. I mean, if they do, that would be talk about epic. There's their epic universe right there. But no, they have a little bit of a rocky road ahead of them, and I think Universal has some challenges, along the way, because a lot of people think, okay, Epic Universe, it's a one and done, it's gonna be the game changer and what have you, and it's like, and even like with even as far as film goes and streaming, it's going to depict whether or not, like, how much that they can utilize any of this IP if they essentially get the rights to them. So yeah, we'll just have to definitely wait and see. I think honestly, Universal would kind of aim towards one, but I mean, if they try to do both, I mean, you're looking at a needle in a haystack on that one.
Well, it's gonna be rough. Paramount's gonna get bought. I'm almost certain of that. I just don't know by who.
Yeah.
So we'll see. What do you think, Jay?
I think a couple things. The first thing I think is whenever I think of Paramount, I'm bummed out by the fact that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny did not start out with a mountain that faded out from the Paramount logo into the mountain. Every other Indiana Jones film does it. They didn't do it because it's not associated with Paramount, I don't think, much in the current day. So that was a bummer to me.
They did it with South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. They kind of segued into this.
Exactly. So now, when it comes to this question specifically, I don't think it's likely. However, the only pushback I would give, and shout out to Matt Bellany and the crew over at the Town podcast, because they were recently talking about, like, with the decline of some of the linear TV, with the shakeups in the studio environment, where, like, now Netflix is one of the biggest players out there and by far the most profitable in streaming. How do you even value Paramount, and how do you even say, like, what it's worth? And I feel like that's true of a lot of these properties. Like, they're sitting on IP, sure, but besides that, like, what are they doing to say, like, we're gonna stick around forever? Like, what is Paramount even around in the next 20 years? Yeah, it's been around forever, but, like, what are they actually doing to move the needle? I don't know. And if they start to slip any further, it might become just kind of a throwaway, like, yeah, we own Paramount, but Paramount's not really worth all that much. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but, like, I could see a world where, if we get into an economic environment, specifically like we've had this year with all the studios not making a ton of money, although some of them did okay. I think in the last 3 years, for sure, they didn't make a lot of money because of the pandemic. Who knows what we could see? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would just say it's out of the realm of possibility. It's unlikely, but I mean, again, you've got to be able to utilize the IP in such a way. I still think that Disney hasn't fully utilized the Fox IP to the degree it could have, right?
Not even close.
We've talked about that. That's a big, giant source of debt, and they haven't even recovered from a lot of that stuff. So, yeah.
No, 100%. And Seymour, actually, I had Mr. Seymour Duck. I think he's in the chat. Shout out to Seymour. But he made a great point with these studios. Is like, it was kind of like the T-Mobile and Sprint merger, right? You have these two kind of like struggling companies. They come together to make one healthy company, so to speak, or bigger entity. it's getting to a point now with these studios, like Warner Brothers is struggling, Paramount's struggling. Is it, the argument can be made that, like, okay, are they better together? Because then they can maybe fend off like a tech giant, right? Like an Apple or an Amazon. See, if a lot, and Seymour was making this point where it's like, if you have like an Amazon buying, like snatching up Paramount or something, like how invested are they in this Hollywood culture, right? Like, are they really going to push that theatrical experience? Probably not. You're probably going to lose that under a tech company. They're not going to care about any of that. So it might be in these studios' best interest to kind of come together and do like that Sprint T-Mobile thing, right? That was Seymour's idea. And I'm like, yeah, you make a good point, So they might have to do that. They might have to do that. It's pretty wild. Leo CH here says, speaking of Steamboat Willie, is now public domain. Instead, making something out of spite or shock value. Let's think positively by asking what could be added or rework of Steamboat Willie. Okay, so yeah, well, positive. You know what I would love to see? Look what the Japanese were able to do with Star Wars when they were handed Star Wars with Star Wars Visions, and they were told, go. Do your thing. It's not canon. Just play in that universe. You know what I'm saying? And the cool stuff we got from the Japanese with that. In an ideal world, I would love to see, not just with the Japanese, but like just like really creative people, really creative studios tackle this character. That would be fun. But I have my doubts that this is going to happen. I think that they're going to all these studios are probably going to go for that shock value to get the headlines and what have you. And that, unfortunately, that's the big thing here. But man, I mean, yeah, in an ideal world, I would go the Star Wars Visions route. And how it
literally pisses me off. Literally, don't even get me started with this, because it's like, when I say that is, I don't mind it being in the public domain, but I can't stand when someone kind of debunks their own creativity just for the sake of saying, you know what, it's in public domain. We could basically do anything to this character, and they can't, like, in a sense, in their own mind, sort of like how they did with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's just like, really? Like, you can come up with so many different things, but you just have to come up with the most disgusting, vulgar type of slasher film that's centered around this beloved character, even before Disney.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what you come up with it.
Well, and this is one thing that I this is probably a spicy opinion, but I see a lot of like the culture war. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like there's a segment of the culture war that they believe, and it's fine. I mean, everyone has their beliefs or whatever, but they believe that Disney, a lot of the content they're making isn't really appropriate for kids, and this, that, and the other, right? But then I see the same people kind of rooting on this public domain thing for Steamboat Willie and all these like slasher films that's coming out for this character, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, you have a character that looks just like Mickey Mouse, and it's not for kids. You might have to have that talk with your kid, because they're going to see that and go, oh, Mom, I want to see that movie, right? And it's like, I thought we didn't like Disney because it was content that wasn't appropriate, but now we're going to celebrate this gory kind of like disgusting takes on this character, and that's cool. And it's like, I feel like it's almost like, well, we hate Bob Iger more than our principal, so to speak, right? So that's okay then, right? So that bothers me a lot too. I mean, I see what you're saying there, but I just personally, I'm a total Disney diehard, and I love this legacy. I love what Walt Disney brought to this world, and I'm just really sad to see this is a character. Mickey Mouse is really like a beacon of optimism. It really was a beautiful creation. A gift to mankind. I know that sounds really cheesy, but it really was, and to see it kind of like twisted and
it's degrading and insulting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in a simple angle, it grosses me out, and I don't know. It's upsetting, but we'll see. We'll see what Disney does. I mean, a lot of this stuff is trademarked now. They're going to have some legal recourse here. Some people are not really reading the fine print here, and I think there are going to be some lawsuits coming their way. But we'll see. But what do you think about this, Jay?
I completely agree with George. I think that it's a lot of people looking to have money grabs. And what's one way to have a money grab? You take an existing thing that people love, you utilize that, and you reshape it into your own image that you want, and then you try to make money off of it. Here's the thing. I like the question, Leo. I think the question is fantastic. What can we do positively with it? I would probably ask a different question. I would probably say that Steamboat Willie is fantastic for what it is, and I would rather go and revisit that than see something new created with that particular Mickey, because we've already seen Disney iterate on top of Mickey already as it is. There's a lot of rich, really rich, powerful Mickey content that we all know and love. So I don't know that I need to see anything else from that particular style of Mickey moving forward. And to George's point, I feel like anything that we do, even if it's not the horror, gory stuff, even if it was like a fun Mickey short, I still feel like, I mean, Disney did it as good as you could do it. Why mess with it? I don't need it. I don't need another one.
Yeah, 100%. I have a buddy, shout out to 6 Miles Tall. We were kind of going back and forth in the DMs, and he was like, he's a really creative guy. This guy's really smart. But he was talking about, he wants to see a movie, like, the animals on the steamboat, he wants to see like their story, like their backstory, like make a movie on like one of them, like the chickens or something, and like, that's interesting. That's kind of an interesting take. I don't even focus on Steamboat Willie, but some of these kind of like background characters, I'm like, okay, that's different. I'm kind of digging that. Mr. Michael Ebba here says, Jay Shear, this is for you, Jay. For all the movies that came out under Disney, which of those that did not do well, what would you have done differently as a creator yourself to make them more successful? That's kind of a loaded question. If you want to just maybe pick one and kind of go from there, or however you want to approach that, but that's,
man, that is a crazy intense question. Here's the
we're gonna get full on Jay Shearer here now. Hold on, let me order a pizza. Hold on.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a movie that I think actually did okay because it came out prior to the pandemic, or maybe it came out early pandemic. There's some movies that didn't do well that I actually don't know how to fix. Right, so let's just talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Good movie, but most people would say, yeah, not anywhere approaching the first trilogy. And I would say, let's not touch that because there's too many factors at play with that film having to take place in the 60s because of where because of how old Harrison Ford is and things like that. Let's just set that aside, right? Difficult to fix. Not sure how to fix that. And I do not want to recast Indiana Jones because Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones to me, so I'm not recasting that. I would actually go back to a film that probably did okay, but The Rock Jungle Book or the Jungle Cruise. Sorry, Jungle Cruise. And by the way, shout out to Michael. I'm interacting with Michael on X all the time. Love Michael. Shout out to Michael. Thanks for asking this question. I feel like that film went in the crazy wrong direction with what it was trying to accomplish. I felt like that film should have been more like a quirky Jungle Cruise, being on the Jungle Cruise, almost kind of more what they tried to do with the latest Haunted Mansion movie, where it's kind of a comedy. They've got a lot of funny people in it doing different things. And I would have leaned in again to the Society of Explorers and Adventurers thing and see if I could have created a franchise out of it, as opposed to doing so I would have done less action, maybe more of like a mystery drama kind of thing where they were a little bit more like early Indiana Jones-ish, because we're not dealing with the modern world as much there. We're dealing with kind of a fantasy kind of setting. And I would have tried to turn that into a franchise. I think that movie was very much okay, and it could have been very much amazing. So that's probably where I would hang out. I know that's a little bit old, but it did come out on Disney, so that'd be my take.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was okay. The best part about that movie, in my opinion, was the score. I love the score. The music in that was incredible. It was classic. It almost felt like a cross between like some of the old school, like Steven Spielberg movies and like the Disney stuff. It was just really good. I really love the music there,
It had massive problems too, because we saw Emily Blunt. For those of you who have seen Oppenheimer, Emily Blunt has chemistry with Cillian Murphy's character of Oppenheimer, and they barely even have a relationship on screen. She had more chemistry in Oppenheimer with Oppenheimer than she did with The Rock. Like, it just doesn't seem like there's any kind of love connection there whatsoever.
No.
So very strange.
It felt very surface level sitcom-y almost, right?
Yes.
It didn't feel like that deep at all, And
we didn't need The Rock in that role. That's not a role for like a big bulky dude. That's a role for like a kind of a scrappier guy, you know.
And essentially,
Right.
it was almost kind of like typecasting in a sense because he had just came off of Jumanji, so
Yep.
he already kind of had that kind of jungle kind of nature, hero saving the day sort of thing. So yeah, I would have went a whole completely different route. I would have done sort of kind of like how Jon Favreau did the live action Jungle Book, like that kind of style.
Okay.
I would have had it where you can have some comedy into it, but I would have had it more artistically pleasing of how
Right.
actually the
Totally
Jungle
agree.
Book is as the attraction.
Yeah.
Then it
And
being
then I
more
would have
slapstick.
cast somebody like now this is a little bit more slapstick than you're suggesting, George,
Mm-hmm.
but I would have cast somebody like Chris Pratt, but had him play a more serious role and had it even feel kind of like the what is it, the Jungle Queen back in the day with Humphrey Bogart, the African Queen, that kind of thing. Like that's going way back in the day. I mean, that was in
Yeah.
the 50s or something, but like that kind of tone and that kind of like make it like a little bit noir and have like a Maltese Falcon-y kind of take.
I could agree with that because Chris Pratt has that sensibility of where he can play a serious role, but he can have this likable kind of comedic sense to him.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's huge. He's huge. I mean, he's coming off that Super Mario Brothers movie. He's doing big things, and yeah, I think they picked The Rock, and I could be wrong, but from what I understand, he sells really good overseas.
Yeah.
He puts butts in seats, and I think that was kind of the mindset, but he wasn't right for the role. I would agree with you on that.
And that was that was kind of the tipping point because after that we got Black Adam and we got like the Rock stock kind of started to fall a little bit. So
Yep, 100%. Started singing like a rock, huh?
a little bit.
Love Low here says, what have been your favorite uses of Steamboat Willie so far after being in the public domain for 3 days now? I like a short film on YouTube called Social Imagineering, which uses him. I got to be honest, Low, I haven't really dived into a lot of that stuff, mostly because it makes me mad.
I would say actually that's just what I was going to say, OG. I like stay away from that stuff as much as possible because it's like unless it proclaims to Disney's way of handling Mickey Mouse, because I'm sorry, Disney is Mickey Mouse is Disney. That's been since the very beginning. It was like same in scenario. When I say Disney, I don't mean the company Disney. I mean Disney as Walt Disney.
Right,
so
right.
when you take this character and you, again, as we were saying before, and you kind of twist it and put a whole new spin on it, it's like, I don't really care. I don't, it bothers me. It's just like, I can understand of having something in the public domain where, you're utilizing it for the sense of, what have you. But I mean, like, this is going like way too far just for the sake of saying they're just doing it because it's in the public domain.
Yeah, and Social Imagineering, just from the name, they probably handle the character respectfully, to be fair to them. I'll check it out, Lovelow. I'll check it out. As long as it's not like a Steamboat Willie slasher film with like jump scares and all that, I'll give it a chance. I'll check it out for sure. But Jay, what do you think? Have you been able to see any of these things?
I haven't. I'm not really that interested. Just like you guys, I think. Okay, so I liked a lot of the Sherlock content that came out after Sherlock Holmes was in the public domain, right? But let's talk about the difference between Sherlock Holmes as a character and Steamboat Willie, right? Steamboat Willie is a version of Mickey that happens to be in the public domain now. But Mickey has had a whole you're actually like taking Mickey from one small portion of existence and saying, let's create a story about this particular Mickey. Whereas we know Mickey has gone on and grown and done other stuff. It feels weird. It feels like the stories that Mickey was in are already told and they've already ended. Whereas with Sherlock Holmes felt like a character who is inserted into plots and mysteries. And so for me, when Sherlock Holmes came out, I was like, okay, it's cool if you use Sherlock Holmes in other ways, but like Mickey has moved on. Like that's a past Mickey. It's not the same thing. And it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not to say that someone couldn't do an awesome short utilizing Steamboat Willie, but like, I don't need it. There's no desire for me to have that. So I think I'm good.
You're right though. Once you evolve past it, it's weird going back to it. Like it's like even with like content creation, right? Like when I first started, my setup was different. It felt a lot more, kind of ragtag, so to speak, right? The mic wasn't great, things like that. And it's like as you go and you evolve, you can't really go back anymore. Like you're already past it, you know. And I feel what you're saying, Jay, is like with Mickey, he's already past that era of his life, I guess you want to call it that, where it feels weird now to sort of like dip back into that because he's done so much. We've had Fantasia, we've had all these other experiences with him, all these adventures. Now you're going to go back to this kind of like this black and white thing. It's like,
I will say though, the one utilization that Disney utilized Steamboat Willie, in their own manner, aside from, I mean, this was now still 20 years ago now, so it's still kind of old, but it was used newer for the generation at that time than when it came out in 1928. So now here comes my gamer geek side, that I love the Kingdom Hearts franchise.
Oh, yeah.
And in Kingdom Hearts 2, the character of Mickey is portrayed as King Mickey. So he rules his kingdom in Disney Town, and he goes off to, you know, try to fight the darkness and the Heartless and Organization 13 and what have you. Well, there's a part in Kingdom Hearts 2 where the castle gets overtaken by the nobodies, which, again, I could go on explaining what that is, but we'll be here all night. So they're the enemies of the game in Kingdom Hearts 2. And it involved where Maleficent took away what was called the Cornerstone of Light. And in order to regain back the Cornerstone of Light, Sora, Donald, and Goofy has to go back into the past to reflect the present.
oh, that's interesting.
So when they go back into the past, King Mickey, before he became king, was Steamboat Willie.
See, stuff like that's creative, right? Because then him being more primitive in his design and his character makes sense because you're going back in time, you know? So if there's a creator, like an independent filmmaker that can kind of utilize that idea, something similar, that's cool. That's actually really cool, you know? So
to give you guys an example of what I just don't, not use Mickey. Kiki and Luca said in the chat that Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman copyright is expiring and going to be public domain in the 2030s. Let's just say that somebody said, "Oh, the 66 TV Batman series is now available for me to utilize in any content." I'd be like, I don't care about the 60s Batman anymore. Like, yeah, fine, you can do a funny sitcom with the 60s Batman. But like that to me is not the Batman that is now modern and relevant and something that I want to see. So all you're doing is you're playing with my nostalgia to try and get my eyes on something. And unless you're bringing something really creative to the table, like what you just described, George, I've moved beyond that particular stage of that character.
yeah, well said. Well said. Absolutely. And Mr. Matthew Murr in the house. Matthew here says, I know we're going to discuss this in more detail on Sunday. Yeah, we are going to be doing a video with Mr. Matthew Murr on Sunday. We're talking animation. It'll be a lot of fun. Really a lot of fun. He says here, but do you think Disney should do more 2D and 3D animation hybrids? Absolutely. I think Disney should play in that sandbox. I think that the animation has a lot of mediums you can dip into. I'm not really like a absolutist when it comes to stuff. Like, I don't think that they should get rid of all hand-drawn and just do CGI, or get rid of all CGI and just do hand-drawn. Go for it, play with it. Do that mix like you saw with Wish. I mean, I know a lot of, that movie didn't do well, but I mean, like, artistically though, it's a creative way of kind of, it's a creative, it's aesthetically creative. It's different, play in that, because there was a long time with CGI. I think like they kind of got into this arms race where it was like, we're going to get as real as possible. So every movie looked the same, and it was just getting more real and more real and more real and more real. And now we're starting to see like they hit a wall with the realism, and now they're getting into the stylized stuff. Now they're doing the Wish. Now they're doing these other kinds of approaches, and I love that. So yeah, Matthew, I am fully on board with that. Play with that stuff, and play into the story. Actually, this is one thing I think Universal did very well when it came to the Puss in Boots movie that just came out, like I think it was a year ago. They utilized a different style of animation than like the Minions movies, right? The Puss in Boots style was more. It looked more like a oil painting almost. And that kind of played into the fantasy kind of storyline that you're dealing with Puss in Boots. It was more painted looking. That's cool. That's appropriate for that character. I want to see Disney do that, with the fairy tales, things like that. Obviously, if you have a movie like Wreck-It Ralph, you go all in on the CGI look, but you play with it depending on the story and just have fun with it. But what do you think, George? I mean, should they do more hybrids? Maybe not. How do you feel about it?
I would love to see more hybrids. I actually got a little taste of that at the Walt Disney Studios back in 2012 when I was out there for the D23 event for the 75th anniversary of Disney feature animation, where they took us up to the studio. We did a tour, we had lunch, and they gave us a special screening of Paperman, which then kind of utilized somewhat of that artistic style that is now that they utilize for Wish. So I do enjoy it, and I think that if they work with it and kind of play around with it, I think it can go a long way. But I also would love to see just more 2D animation kind of come back and kind of revitalize. It doesn't have to be every film, but like here and there, maybe do like a classic Disney musical fairy tale that's just pure cell animation. I would love to see that because it really showcases the animator.
Yeah, no, it does. It hand drawn hits differently because it's that pencil, the pencil and the drawings. But now, do you think that they'll ever do that though? Because hand drawn maybe, but do you think they'll ever get to the point where it's hand drawn and cell painted again, or do you think it'll be hand drawn with computer painted?
That's what I think it's going to be. Unfortunately, I would love to see like that classic old school, but I think it's just so far down the tube that it's probably too hard to even come back from. But I mean, if that's what it would take to just kind of like merit both of them together, just to kind of get just a somewhat of a 2D animated film that's done well properly, I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah, me too. 100%. As long as you're drawing it, if you have to paint it on the computer, totally understand. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Jay? Difference blending the 2D and 3D, different styles of animation.
I mean, I don't think there should be any constraints, especially in the experimental format. Like we saw, you mentioned Star Wars Visions earlier. There's so many creative ways to put out animated shorts and do things along those lines. I think animation is going to have this really touchy relationship with AI, because AI is going to be able to, I mean, you're going to literally be able to tell AI like, once you've had it draw your character, now animate it, right? Like it's not very long before this happens. And so I think I'm always going to feel really nostalgic for the actual hand drawn, the actual flipping the pages, instead of the layers of the computer. And I think we're going to see more and more computers taking over a lot of this kind of content. And that bums me out a little bit. I'm not trying to fight against technology, but I do think that if we could get back to more of that, the artist did this, the artist poured themselves into this, the computer didn't have as much to do with it. I would love that. But yeah, I mean, look, animation is the final frontier of whatever your imagination can want to do. We're not constrained by the live action components that we might be constrained by, in other words. So yeah, do all the things with animation,
100%. I got a question for you, Jay, before we move on to the next one. Yeah. Now, you just had your first short film that you directed, No Vacancy. Are you interested in directing animation? If it came across your desk, would you do an animated film?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have a book that I wrote before No Vacancy in the Harlequin called Death of a Bounty Hunter. And I've always thought it would make a really, really good animated series, because it's kind of like it's not as futuristic as Cowboy Bebop, but it kind of has like a steampunk Western kind of vibe to it. And I've always thought it would make a really, really, really good animated series. Just like, if it could be done there was a episode of Star Wars Visions season 1, I believe it's the first episode, where it was done in like this like super intense grayscale. They only used like red, I think was the only color they used throughout. That would be amazing to do an animated thing for Death of a Bounty Hunter like that. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I love animation.
Cool. And we have Lord Jonathan in the house. Since Percy Jackson cast requested a new land from Disney, now could it go into Dino Land area? I was not aware that the Percy Jackson cast is asking for a land. That's pretty funny. I like that. That's ballsy. I like that. But I've been hearing good things about. I haven't seen this show yet. But I've been hearing good things about it. I think they're I think 4 episodes in. Yeah, it's a high fantasy kind of story, high fantasy franchise. It works with Disney. It does. I could see them doing a land or something like that if this thing really takes off. George, have you watched any of these on Disney Plus?
I have not yet, unfortunately, but I do. I am very interested because I was very invested in the Percy Jackson franchise, even back when they were just novels, and then when the films came out, and now now they're streaming as a series. I'm very curious about it. I think it would be quite of an interesting land. You could probably somewhat do it in Animal Kingdom because you have that mythological standpoints to it. You can put it in Hollywood Studios for sure. I think right now, I think Disney would still more so go the route with Indiana Jones and Encanto. We still haven't really got an official green light on those projects, but I think to the fact that how Disney is usually utilizing their budgets, I think it would kind of benefit them to change dinosaur into Indiana Jones. And again, we talked about this. They showcased Encanto coming to Animal Kingdom actually on the 100 years special that they actually showcased Lin-Manuel Miranda that actually added to it, saying, I would love to go into that house in the park.
And that was on ABC. Okay, this is for the soccer moms and the normies, right? when you're on that D23 stage, you're talking to the nerds like us. But when you're on ABC talking about Encanto, that's in my opinion, that's basically telling you it's greenlit. Because they're announcing it to the public essentially. It's not just to the niche little nerd crowd; it's to everybody. So yeah, I think you're on something with that. I think the Encanto thing is happening.
Yeah.
Jay, what are your thoughts on this?
If I were going to now I don't know a lot about Percy Jackson. Have not really. I want to watch the show because I've heard really good things. But
yeah,
if I were going to do it, I would make it a stage show. To be honest with you. And I would have it be one of those stage shows where you could have the, put it in the Hyperion or something like that, but like have it so that when the actors engage with the set, you could actually see the magic happen with visual projections and things like that. I think that's what I would do with it. I think, live action is a little bit more difficult to create lands around. I think Universal's done a fantastic job with Harry Potter, but I actually think it's easier to do it with turning an animated thing into a land as opposed to a live action thing that we've kind of seen before.
Right.
And so without knowing Percy Jackson too much, I think a stage show would be the best way to go with that.
That's interesting. I like that. T.S. Wade, he says, if Once Upon a Studio wins an Oscar for Best Picture, Best Animated Short, and The Boy and the Heron, which those of you at home that are not aware, that's like a Japanese animated film, wins an Oscar for Best Animated Feature, will this mean Disney will come back doing hand-drawn animated films? Yeah, I actually did a video on this a few days ago, T.S. Wade. I was answering a subscriber's question, Alessio. I was actually answering his question about this. And I think it's not going to be like a for sure thing, but I think that if they have wins kind of stacked up with this hand-drawn animation, and look, Disney right now, Wish didn't do that great. You know what I'm saying? So if they're seeing that this hand-drawn stuff is really resonating with fans and families, they'd be stupid not to okay, why not? At least try it. So I think it definitely makes a case for it. I think it encourages them to do it. And right now, when they're vulnerable, I think there's even a better chance because they need that win. They need that W. And if they feel like, hey, it's working in these other areas, other studios and stuff, and why not? It's possible. We'll see. The hurdle, T.S. Wade, though, is, and I think our good friend Alia has brought this up, and I think she's right. They're also juggling. It's not even just like a creative thing, but they're also juggling budgets. So bringing hand-drawn animation, like for a full-length animated movie, where does that fall into the lowering the budgets equation? Because I would imagine that's going to be probably more expensive. So what do they do? Do they animate it overseas? Do they not do it in Burbank anymore? That's another issue. So we'll see. What are your thoughts on that, George?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely bring it to light to say, you know what, these short films and these animated feature films still have relevance to them, that it's being looked upon with the audience and the academy, and it's like if they end up winning, it can definitely put the spotlight into perspective to say, you know what, us as creatives, these type of projects still have relevance,
Right.
and yeah, I think moving forward, it can help. I still think there's still a very strong possibility this is going to happen regardless, whether both of them win, one of them win, or neither of them win. But I think it would definitely kind of plead the case, so to speak,
Yeah.
moving forward with 2D animation.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Jay?
I don't want to bring anybody's high down, but I would not be surprised if Once Upon a Studio was not nominated for an Oscar. And I say that because I do believe that film is more of a piece of Disney nostalgia than it is like a story being told at all. And I think the Academy is always going to go more towards storytelling than it is towards like a piece of promotional nostalgia.
Yeah.
Not to
That's a
say
great
that it
point.
isn't awesome, because it's awesome. I just don't want it to get too excited about it and then have it not show up, right? That it's not in the running. My response was going to be the same as yours. I think that Disney is right now. Shout out to Alia, she's totally right about this. Disney is going to be focused on how great of a movie can we get in animation sub $100 million budget.
Right.
And that's the question they should be asking. They can't afford to keep producing things that are more expensive than that when they're not going to perform in theaters. Well, they may or may not perform in theaters. And I think that I don't know, man. I don't know if they can do that with, like you said, with 2D animation. So I'd love to see them do it. Don't get me wrong. I miss 2D animation. I really wish there was way more 2D animation out there. And even like what Into the Spider-Verse and that whole universe that they're creating over there at Sony, that stuff's amazing. And it's partially amazing because it looks like a blend between the 3D and the 2D.
Right.
And so I'd love to see that, but I think that those are expensive, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to get that.
Yeah, no, 100%, Jay. And here's the other thing too, and it kind of breaks my heart actually, to be honest with you. I kind of feel like as we kind of march towards the future, and I feel like we're going to kind of lose people that can even do a hand animation.
Yeah.
Are they even going to teach it in art schools anymore and stuff like that? And that's sad. That's really, really sad to even think about. But we'll see. It's a beautiful art form, and it'd be a shame to lose it. Leo CH here says, of all the Tomorrowlands on Disney parks, which do you think has the better Tomorrowland in terms of design and attraction? In my opinion, the best one that works the most and feels kind of the most timeless too is Shanghai. I love what they did with that one. It's clean. It's forward kind of leaning, but it kind of has almost like a mid-century kind of like retro feel to it as well. It really is a good little blend. I think that's in my opinion, that's the direction I think that Disneyland's Tomorrowland should go. What do you think about that, George? What's the best Tomorrowland of all the Disney parks?
I think, honestly, the best Tomorrowland is yet to be seen, and it's going to come after the closure of Tokyo's, because I feel like what Tokyo is going to bring is going to be a game changer for Tomorrowland. And honestly, I have full on faith in them, because the OLC, honestly, they know how to write out a check, and they know how to do it well, and they just give it to WDI, and it's like, go do your thing. We don't care if that's the price tag. We're going to do it.
Right.
So so aesthetically, I think, honestly, moving forward, just by the concept art alone, I feel like Tokyo, like with everything else, they're gonna take the crown with Tomorrowland.
Yeah, I mean they're like an advanced like society, like well beyond us. So I'm sure you're right. Absolutely. What do you think, Jay?
This may be my hottest take of the day. We complain a lot about Tomorrowland at Disneyland, and it is a disaster. Not disaster. It's a bummer. But here's the thing. 1950s, 60s, 70s Tomorrowland at Disneyland was amazing. And when they installed Space Mountain and you had to ride up the escalator to get into the area where you were going to ride into the queue, that to me was this retro experience of what the future could hold. And the problem is that rather than keeping that aesthetic, they kept changing it, right? They're like, now it's the 80s. Let's bring in Captain EO. Now it's still the 80s. Let's bring in a Star Wars property. And it lost that whole sense of like, what was it like to think about the future in the 50s and 60s? That's what was a cool Tomorrowland, right?
Right.
You could still have that aesthetic today, and every other ride and attraction there could be abiding by that aesthetic, and it would still be cool. But unfortunately, they're trying to like keep up with the Joneses there, and I just don't think that works. So I'm going to vote for 1950s, 60s, 70s era Tomorrowland at Disneyland.
Yeah, that's actually not as that's not a bad idea. I actually love that whole era for Tomorrowland when you saw the people mover crisscrossing over the land, and you had the rocket jets up there on the platform, and there's all that kinetic energy. I mean, it was really cool, and it's a timeless, like what you're saying, Jay. It's really a timeless kind of aesthetic because it's a future that never happened, so it never really goes out of style, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. Michael Ebba here with another question for Jay. All the problems or criticisms that we see and point out in movies and shows, how much more difficult is it to see those mistakes and flaws during production? As a director, as a creative, do you see this stuff during the design process, or are they even problems? Maybe the audience points out something that as a creator, you didn't realize was even a problem. How's that work?
It is, I don't know, 1,000,000 times harder to spot the flaws when you're actually making the thing.
Right.
Take any endeavor where you're building something, right? Like, there are lots of mistakes that can be made. There are lots of people that are contributing to the film, to whatever creative process you're doing. It's really, really difficult to coordinate all of those things to perfection. There's so many moving parts and so many moving people. And so for the viewer who can watch it over and over and over again, right? Once you filmed it. If you got the take wrong, the take is wrong. Like you'd have to go back and do reshoots. Now they do go back and do reshoots, but a lot of times if it's like something that's minor or something that nobody notices, yeah, there will be fans that notice things, and they will always do that because fans love content, and so they just dive into it and they just watch it and they ingest it and they love it. But they're always going to find stuff that the creative people involved just don't find. That's just going to be the thing that always happens. And it's unfortunate. You wish you could create perfect things, but guess what? No human being is perfect. So nothing that's created can ever be totally perfect because it just doesn't work. Life doesn't work that way. So you will always be able to, whenever we talk about, I was looking at the chat earlier and Michael and Matthew were talking about people being negative about Disney. Let me tell you something about life. It is far easier to be negative about things and criticize things than it is to talk about what's great about them. You want me to criticize? You pick your favorite thing. I can find something to criticize about it. That's life because nothing's perfect. So because nothing is perfect, even when we find mistakes in things, sometimes I feel like we should celebrate those things and not treat them as like the people just completely failed, but rather the people took on a creative endeavor. And they may have failed at one thing here or there, but what was the greater thing that they built, and what did that have to say about our shared human experience? Let's focus on that instead, because that's way more fun.
Oh, 100%. Well said, Jay. And here's the other thing too. We just talked about animation, right? And it's like we all agree we love the hand-drawn animation. CGI is very cool, but we really love that hand-drawn. Well, hand-drawn has kind of that flawed element to it because you have an artist sketching it and drawing it. It's a human being. those circles are not going to be perfect. And that's, for at least naked eye, it might look like it, but it's still a guy drawing or a gal drawing it, where a computer will get it down to like an exact, you know what I'm saying? And it doesn't feel the same though, right? It's like those imperfections give it almost more personality.
Yep.
And like you were saying, celebrate those imperfections sometimes. Like we love, all three of us here, we love Star Wars. And even though that original trilogy is far from perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's far from perfect.
Absolutely.
Mr. Matthew Moore with a fantastic question here. Says here, specifically for Jay. I'm loving all the Jay questions.
Yeah, thank you guys for asking me questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this is great. This is a good one. He says here, when do you think Palpatine is at its absolute most frightening? I know you've already done a video on Vader. Yes, he has done a video on Vader, which is actually one of my favorite Jay Shear videos. Definitely check that out. That was How Stories Work, right? I believe.
I don't remember.
I don't remember
too many videos. Geeks. Yeah, I think it might have been Story Geeks, but I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure.
Okay. Matthew, I'll find it. Also, I'll put it in the description because it's an amazing video. But Jay, I mean, Palpatine, like, when is he at his most frightening?
I would like to hear you guys go first. George,
okay.
What do you think? Then OG, you go, then I'll go third.
Go for
it. Sorry. Pouring myself a drink here. So for me,
George having Mai Tais with his chest hair. He's
so for me, I would have to say, because I've seen the originals, so you kind of already get a gist of that character, but it always questioned me, like, who was this character? What was his background story? How did he become what this was, essentially? Because when you start to learn Vader, but you don't really get to know too much. Well, once you know the backstory of Vader, who is, Palpatine, and why did he and Vader then came together, which then came to the prequels, which we then knew when we saw young Anakin Skywalker. We knew building up to episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, there's going to be this anticipation where Anakin then becomes Darth Vader. So essentially, where does Palpatine fall into this?
Right.
We end up, learning that Palpatine, so like where Palpatine, then becomes Darth Sidious and what have you. So it's kind of like that notion of, okay, so this is a guy that kind of seems trustworthy and what have you. I loved, and a lot of people can give flack about the prequels, but I loved watching Palpatine battle Mace Windu in episode 3.
Interesting.
And just watching the transformation of Palpatine literally becoming Sidious right before your eyes. So you kind of see this kind of like weak but yet vulnerable older man who then like is like a caged panther that just strikes and starts fighting Mace Windu. And it's like, then he acts all defenseless and innocent, and then all of a sudden it's just electricity just comes out of his hands and literally obliterates Mace Windu like right out the window, so it's like in that moment you're like, damn, like all that buildup of Palpatine not knowing who he was, that he's actually Darth Sidious, and then it's in that moment. Because I remember seeing that movie in theaters. To me, that was, I felt like, I mean, I'm not gonna put myself on a pedestal here, but I don't get like frightened or scared like in the sense where it's like, oh my god, like something jumped out at me. But I felt like that was a powerful moment for Palpatine.
I think Palpatine is at its scariest, at his scariest when there's mystery involved, when you don't really see him. He's got that cloak on. Maybe you hear his voice. Maybe you hear his laughter. Actually, that's one of the good things. I think when it came to Rise of Skywalker, with all the flaws that movie had, I actually like how they handled Palpatine in that movie.
Palpatine's character was best in the trailer than the actual movie itself.
Well, that's a fair point. But I like when he's shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
I think Palpatine falls short, like when they kind of when he's getting thrown down the shaft with the no, the whole thing, like that kind of stuff. I think that's when you lose it. You know what I'm saying? But when he's in the shadows and he's like that puppet master and you hear him, but you don't necessarily see him, he's got the cloak. I think that's when he's at his best. It's that mystery factor that makes Palpatine absolutely terrifying because you don't know where he is. You don't really know who he is. And that makes him a lot scarier as opposed to when you just see him out there and and it kind of plays to your Darth Vader video, Jay. When you were talking about Vader, you were saying, when you have Vader in these small, tight spaces, it's much more chilling than, like, say, in Kenobi, where he's out there in the town walking around in the village, and you see him like just full Vader, and it's like that's not as scary as when like Rogue One when he's in that little corridor.
That honestly was the best. I think that
Right?
was the best of Vader.
Yeah,
Was in Rogue One.
When those tight spaces and things like that. And I think with Palpatine, it kind of lends to the same effect. I think that when you have him in these kind of like mysterious positions, you don't really see him, maybe you just hear him, things like that. That's when he's scariest the most. When you just see him full on and he's out there, it loses a little something for me personally. What about you, Jay?
So my favorite Palpatine, I love what you guys have said already. My favorite Palpatine is when Luke first arrives in the throne room on the Death Star, and Palpatine is sitting there, and Palpatine has decided that he's going to put Luke, because you have like somebody like Grand Admiral Thrawn, right? And Grand Admiral Thrawn knows all the strategy. He's like, I'm going to plan this, I'm going to plan that, I'm going to try to checkmate you. Palpatine is similar, but there's a little added thing that Palpatine has. He has it in the original trilogy. He has it here in the throne room as well, and that is, he manipulates the individual, not just the chess pieces, but the actual person in front of him. He manipulates them. And I love that about Palpatine in the throne room, because what he does, the great thing about the throne room scene is that you have Vader in small spaces when they're underneath when he's chasing Luke underneath the walkways and stuff like that. So you get scary Vader trying to attack Luke, but you also get terrifying Palpatine. And what is his whole manipulation there? His whole manipulation is, you're getting angry at me, and you should probably either strike me down or strike your father down, or you should turn over to the dark side, bud. And look what you got going out the window behind you. I'm going to kill all your friends too. And it's like that manipulation of trying to make Luke just lose his cool and turn to the dark side in that moment is so manipulative. He's just worked Luke into this. You thought you were going to come here and redeem your dad. You're not coming here to redeem your dad. You're coming in here to turn to the dark side, brother. So good luck with that. I think that's the best Palpatine for me.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, Palpatine is such a narcissist, right? And he's got it down. He's got it down. And you're right, that manipulation factor, man. No one manipulates like Palps. Nobody. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Great character. One of the all-time greatest villains of all time.
Thank you for the question too, Matthew. That's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. Leo CH here says, what do you think is the most scariest Disney animated movie? I think there's two that come to my I would say two. The Black Cauldron, I think very scary, with the Horn King. That's extremely intense, very dark. And then I would say Hunchback of Notre Dame. I think was a pretty adult animated movie. And it dealt with a lot of adult themes and everything. It's pretty intense. So those two are mine. What do you think, George? What's your two? What are the scariest Disney animated movies?
Actually, I think those were the two that I had.
Okay.
But okay, so I'm going to try to think of how I can word this. No, I don't think this is actually a scary Disney movie, because this is one of my all-time favorite Disney movies.
Okay.
But if you just kind of look at it through the lens of a child.
Okay.
When you take a film like The Lion King and you kind of wrap it around like it's supposed to be the story of Hamlet, and you're going to tie it into, okay, well, how can we kind of center around like the animals in Africa and what have you? But when you turn it into an animated film and you essentially watch this young cub lose his father in the way that he did, and it's actually right there on screen to a young child's point of view, I think is absolutely devastating. And then you kind of get to the end point where you have the adult version now of this young cub who is now facing his inner demons, his past, with his uncle who essentially killed his father, and then you throw your uncle off pretty much a cliff, and then he gets devoured by hyenas, engulfed with flames and fire.
That was chilling. Yeah, that was chilling.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say like the whole the whole film of The Lion King, but I think looking through the lens of a child,
Yeah.
I think that could be pretty scary.
And that's what I loved about those Michael Eisner era animated movies. He did not care, and Walt didn't either with Bambi, and he had some dark stuff too. Walt with Chernabog and all that. But some of those Eisner era movies, they dipped into that dark side quite a bit. And I really love and respect that, because I've been saying for a long time, I don't like when animation talks down to its audience. And unfortunately, I feel like Illumination, that whole studio is built on that. I know they're like cute Minions and all that stuff, but it really, they're kid movies through and through. You know what I'm saying? I love what Disney has done historically, where they're not afraid to go dark. They're not afraid to kill Bambi's mother. They're not afraid to kill Mufasa. They're not afraid to go super dark with like The Horned King or Hunchback of Notre Dame. I love that about Disney animation, you know? And so I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jay? Scariest Disney animated movies?
I'm not going to be too far off here. I think visually scary, Chernabog is the scariest thing that they've put out. Like in terms of visual, it's cool looking, but it's like actually terrifying too. But I do think that the Hunchback of Notre Dame brings up both of those things. Deal with something that Disney doesn't always touch, but it is like this spiritual kind of element, right? Because a lot of times there's a fantastical element, but doesn't necessarily get into a spiritual element. But Hunchback of Notre Dame like has a perspective on religion of the time, right? Like, and then it also, when you see Chernabog, I mean that's literally supposed to be a representation of like a demon. So I mean, like getting into that kind of stuff is very unusual for Disney, but it is terrifying when they do it.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to utilize Chernabog more. He's just an awesome character.
Dude. Yeah.
Love him. Absolutely love him. Michael Ebba, another question for Jay. This ties into my last question. A lot of complaints about movies under the Disney banner have been the writing. Why is bad writing being greenlit? Wouldn't someone notice before?
Oh, I love this question. So I am originally I know I directed the film. We've been talking a lot about me directing it, but I'm actually come from a writing background. So that's really where I've spent most of my time is writing. And
I mean, yeah, sure. If you want to talk specifics,
yeah, if you want to get real specific. Why is bad writing greenlit? Okay, there's a couple reasons why there's a perception that things are poorly written. One of them is that when the writers write something and hand it off to the production team, in most cases, what happened with our short film and what would happen with our feature if we were to do it is not what happens. It's not what you kind of expect it to be, like this like thing where it's like, well, the writer kind of stays with the project, right? And like they ask the writer like how they should say the lines. No. The writer is usually never even on set, or maybe visits one day. Usually when the writer hands in a script, they go, great, cool. And the director takes that script and the director goes, it's mine now. And I can do whatever I want to that script.
Wow. So it's basically like a game of telephone where you start with one thing, and by the time it goes through the process, the other end, it's completely different almost.
Yeah. And just to be clear, not like the director doesn't talk to the writer. It's not like they don't get a good feel for what's going on there. They do all of those things, but it is a collaborative nature that goes from pre-production to production to post-production. Keep in mind, there's an editor that touches it on the end, right? There's an editor. A lot of times the editor is working with the director, but has a different cut than the director. Why do we see director's cuts? Because the editor goes, the movie should play out this way. And the director goes, that's not the way I would have played it out. I would have played it out this other way. So there's got to be a director's cut. So there's lots of different stages that a film goes through. So a lot of times when you hear, well, the writing is just bad. Well, okay, how was the actor actually delivering the lines? How was the director informing the actors how to deliver those lines? How much of those lines were actually from the original script and not actually improv in the moment, right? So one complaint about writing is that why are things getting greenlit? Things tend to get greenlit. And this is true actually in the business world too. Think about it this way, right? Someone comes to you with an idea It's either maybe a prototype for a ride or maybe it's a film. And they go, I've got a great idea. And they go, what's your great idea? And they go, dinosaurs in a park. We bring back dinosaurs and they enter a park and it is all these dinosaurs. It's amazing. The same screenwriter who wrote Jurassic Park, one of the top 10 films of all time, in my opinion, is the same screenwriter that wrote Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's not like it's like, you know, oh yeah, well, we just hired Jay to write Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That's why it sucks. But we got a totally different guy. So what's happening? First of all, they're greenlighting a lot of these things based on the concept. Yeah, sure, the script too, but the concept is what sells a lot. What is a concept? A concept is saying, I have a movie and it's about dinosaurs on an island brought back to life and put in a theme park. And people go, that's a great concept. I'd love to see that movie. And they go, great, what's the script look like? Script looks like this. We like the script. We'll buy it from you, writer number 1, and hand it off to writer number 2. Writer number 2, can you actually make the script a little bit more interesting and a little bit better? Yeah, I'll do that. No problem. And then you give it to the director, and the director goes and does what the director does. So a lot of times when we say something is poorly written, it's not so much that the original drafts were poorly written. It's not that what was greenlit was poorly written. It's that the entire process, something got out of line and was like just not going down the right track at all. And so so many people touch it that's kind of what happens.
Well, and that's why. Go ahead, George.
No. Really quick, I just want to say to your point, Jay, that is interesting because I remember watching like the behind the scenes of Jaws, where Quint's speech about the Indianapolis, you know, it was the writer who wrote that little piece, then passed it to Spielberg, who rewrote it, and then gave it to Robert Shaw, who then made his own rendition of it. So it like went through 3 separate ways to the final product of what you see was actually the writer's interpretation, then went to Spielberg, and then went to Robert Shaw. So it's like a combination of like how many people that writing went down to make the final speech.
Yeah, 100%. And we got Jonas J. Campbell in the house. It's always good to see you, Jonas. Thank you for joining us, sir. He says here, and this is why I bring his up. I kind of skipped ahead, but it's actually very relevant to what we're discussing now, which is I would blame endless executive meddling, which ends up being rushed once the deadline gets close enough. This is fantastic, Jonas.
Is that why he got pushed up? I thought he had a lightning lane return.
Lightning lane, yeah. No, that lightning lane, you got to wait another hour and a half for that. That's not too speedy. But Jay, any thoughts on that? I mean, you know,
I think totally right.
Yeah,
Jonas is the man. He has another comment here. I love talking with Jonas on X and stuff like that. Jonas is fantastic. And I think he has a good take on things too, where he's not too negative, but he will hold Disney's feet to the fire on certain things, which is great. We don't always agree, but I really like to hear his takes. Yeah, he's 100% right. I mean, like, look for example at like, let's take for example the Justice League versus Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League, right?
Right.
How did that all come about? Oh, studio meddling was the whole thing. I mean, literally the studio had Zack Snyder make, and by the way, Zack Snyder is the director, so there was also a writer writing things to give to Zack Snyder to direct.
Right.
They had him make a movie called Justice League. Then the studio said, we really like what Marvel's doing. We don't really like what you're doing, Zack Snyder. We're going to hire Joss Whedon, a completely different director. He's going to come in, rewrite the script, rearrange the script, and then add new scenes to it. I mean, talk about meddling. It's like the most meddling that you could also possibly hear about. Right. Another person that this happened to recently was David Ayer, because David Ayer had a film that he says one of the worst rated DC films is Suicide Squad, the first one. Not the James Gunn one, the one before. And now he said, they had 7 different cuts of that film, and none of them were my cut. So executive meddling. So what is the executive looking for? Not to go too deep into this, but the executive is looking for something that is very, very, very different than a lot of the creators are looking for. Right. Executives are looking for return on investment.
Just like with Solo as well.
just like with Solo as well, right? By the way, just like with every project that Lucasfilm has canceled, at some point in time, Lucasfilm went, we don't see the dollar signs anymore. Patty Jenkins, you did a fantastic Wonder Woman. We loved Wonder Woman. Then you released WW84. And that sucked. So you're out, right? Like it's like, what? How do we make money? That's what a studio is ultimately trying to do,
Right?
Not because they don't care about the material, not because they don't care about what's coming out, but ultimately that studio will not be able to produce content anymore if it doesn't make money.
No, absolutely, Jay. And to Jonas's point too, with being rushed, I think the DCEU is a perfect example of that, right? Because Marvel did an excellent job at sort of like building the cinematic universe, right? You got Captain America, and you had, you had the Thor movie, and it was all these kind of solo movies, right, that built up to this big kind of Avengers film. DC and the executives at DC were like, you know what? Let's cut to the freaking chase.
Bring us to Justice League.
Right. Let's just do Justice League. It was so rushed. So you weren't what worked with the MCU was these individual movies got you invested. You got to know these characters. And so by the time you got to the Avengers, you were like, okay, I'm invested in Black Widow and Captain America and in Iron Man, all these great characters. So it mattered more.
Yeah. And now they just make so many renditions of DC all at once. Like it's so hard to keep up. Like I don't know which one is one to the other, and it's like that's why I lose interest. I don't when they say, oh, a new DC movie, and it's not because of James Gunn. I am a huge fan of what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's like, and I hope he does get a handle on DC, but it's like I'm just like so burnt out of it, of just hearing about it, and it doesn't go anywhere, and then it gets moved on to someone else. It's like I'm not even invested in it.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that, George. I feel you on that. But that is kind of behind us now. I think the DC cinematic universe is actually officially over now, from what I understand. So now we're moving into the new era, the James Gunn era. Hey, we'll give him a shot. We'll see what he does with Superman. I mean, supposedly he's really passionate about this project. Hopefully he can really bring it. There's a lot riding on this movie. Like if this movie doesn't work, it's kind of like Jay, when I had you on with Colleen talking about your short film, and you were saying Colleen's character, if you don't like her, the whole thing falls apart.
The whole thing falls apart.
Kind of like that with Superman. If this movie doesn't work, the whole thing kind of falls apart. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot riding on it.
You all let me know how it goes.
Absolutely. Leo CH here says, what movie have you watched that made you actually angry? This is kind of funny. I don't know.
This is an interesting.
It's interesting. I have a feeling we're going to get some Star Wars comments in here because there's a lot of passion with Star Wars. But here's the thing: a movie that actually made me angry. There was a movie back in the day called Project X. I don't know if you guys saw that movie, where this kid throws this crazy house party. It's based on like a true story. Yeah. I mean, this thing is. It was absolutely insane, and not to give away too much, but anyway, he was trying to get with like this really hot chick in school, right? So he's throwing this big, party, the whole thing. He goes through hell in a handbasket during this whole endeavor, and he never gets the girl, man. I was like, oh, I feel for this kid. I'm like, come on, man, that made me mad. I was so angry for this kid. I'm like, bro, dude, it's like, ugh. But it was a good movie, actually. I actually really enjoyed that movie. It's wild. It's based on a true story. I mean, when you see what they did to this entire neighborhood, it's absolutely insane. Have you seen this movie, Jay?
No,
Project X?
I haven't. I never saw it.
It's insane, dude. It's absolutely insane. I think it actually happened in a Pasadena suburb out here in Southern California. So
no way.
Crazy movie, but it's kind of like a super bad, I guess, but like way edgier. You know what I'm saying? Okay. But what about you, George? What movie made you actually angry? What do you feel?
Okay, so there's two movies that actually made me angry, but it did its job.
Okay.
Because it made me angry, because these are actually based off of true stories, and I love watching. It's very intricate, and they're actually both Leonardo DiCaprio movies, and they are Catch Me If You Can.
Oh,
and The Wolf of Wall Street.
Those are good movies, George.
But they are.
Really
But
good.
that's just it. They are good movies. But how they made me angry was Leo's character, in the sense of, because you have these two people that essentially are breaking the law,
right.
you know, but they're getting away with it, you know, and essentially, and it's like after you watch him, like, dang, like it's like his characters are pissing me off right now,
Yeah.
but that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
You know, so it's like, so the movie did, so as I said, they are really good movies. I love them. I own them, you know, but it's like, but if I can't really justify an actual movie that I walked out and I said, oh my God, this movie just like straight up pissed me off. I don't want to see it again.
Yeah.
So it's more so of the rendition of those two movies
Right.
of Leo's character, that it was just like he's the main character, but yet you kind of want to see that moment where it's like, okay, when is he going to get caught? You know, and it's like,
I gotta say that Wolf of Wall Street has some of the best dialogue I've seen in a movie in such a long time. I just love, and I'm sure it's Leonardo DiCaprio because he always brings it.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic.
oh,
actor.
and Castaway.
That
Castaway
movie
kind of yeah, because I mean he was stranded on an island. He gets back to find like
His
wife just like gave up.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, so it's like, yeah, so it's like not necessarily the whole movie, but there's like instances in the movie where
Right.
it's like that
Well,
really irritates me.
And I've said it many times on the channel. I'm an Aladdin hater. Not the movie's fantastic. I love Aladdin, but I am such an Aladdin hater. This guy has the hottest girl. He's got a monkey, a flying carpet, a genie. It's like he has it all. I'm hating on this guy. That makes me mad. Makes me mad. What about you, Jay? What movie actually makes you mad?
Not a lot of movies make me actually mad. Sometimes I get a little bit frustrated with them because of how they play it, execution or whatever, or sometimes messaging. Sometimes I feel like the messaging of films these days is odd. No, but I don't think it's ironic that I was just talking about the Justice League because I cannot stand that film. It's my most disappointing movie in the history of movies that I've ever seen. And that is because if you had bought in, Slimer has a great comment here talking about BVS and Snyder's BVS Batman v Superman and Snyder's Justice League cut. If you had bought in to Zack Snyder's vision for what he was trying to accomplish with the DCEU, right? Talking about his trilogy, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then Justice League. If you had bought into that, and then you know what the studio did to that movie, well, I described it earlier about bringing in Joss Whedon and all that. They basically said, this trilogy that's supposed to complete this guy's vision, excuse my language, but fuck this guy. We're going to just turn the movie into something different, right? Like, It's just going to be a different thing. I don't care about the guy's kid had just passed away during this whole thing, and they took the movie from him and said, we're going to give it to this other guy whose sensibilities I do not like as much. I know people love Joss Whedon. Blessings to you. I don't like his sensibilities as much as even Zack Snyder's. And I thought that was just a dirty thing to do to both the audience and to the director who you were building an entire world around. And I just don't respect the WB leadership at the time for doing that. I think it's just completely insane. And you can hear me being angry right now.
Yeah.
Like, it just, as an audience member, it made me mad. I was like, you have gotten me into the theater, and then you gave me a movie that I did not come to see. And the movie that I did come to see, you said, we're not going to show that to you anymore. Right. That's just asinine. I could not stand that. Hated it. Will always think that that's the most not the worst movie of all time.
Right.
The most disappointing movie for me personally.
In the words of Michael McDonald, let's take it to the streets.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then Jonas J. Campbell here says I was specifically talking about Disney's current method for animation. By the way, Jay's awesome. Jay is really awesome. I love Jay. But that's interesting. Okay, so you're talking about executive meddling with animation. Oh yeah, there's a lot of that. Well, actually, Jonas, I don't know if you've seen it, but the Frozen 2 documentary on Disney Plus, the making of that. Speaking about movies or things that make us mad, that documentary actually really made me mad. I learned a lot about the process, at least the current process of Disney animation, that kind of pissed me off a little bit, to be honest, where they were talking about how, like, well, I don't know if the kids are going to sit through this part because it's a little too slow. We need to have an Olaf joke in here and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Stop. And this is what I've been saying a lot with animation, you know, it's like, stop talking down to your audience, right? And in that documentary, they even talk about Jeffrey Katzenberg wanting to cut the Part of Your World song in Little Mermaid, because Katzenberg was worried that kids wouldn't sit through that. It's too slow or whatever. And you know what? Thank God that Howard Ashman, who is an absolute genius, thank God he stuck to his guns, and we got that song, which turned out to be the heartbeat of the whole entire movie, the Want song, right? You know, and it's like, so you get this new stuff now where it's like they need to insert like a fart joke here or laugh, you know. I just don't like that. So I see what you're saying, Jonas. I definitely see what you're saying. They got to get away from that. But what are your thoughts on that, Jay, in terms of animation, Disney's animation specifically? Where are you at with that?
Oh, Disney animation specifically? I mean, it's hard. It's so hard to say. There's so many. Thanks, Jonas. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for throwing out a little gift there. That's awesome. It's harder for me when it comes to animation to know all of the behind the scenes that are going on, especially in the modern day, because to your point about how it used to be that the executives had the final creative say. And it would have to be somebody on the creative team being like, I'm putting my foot down. I'm not changing this film. The executives almost always are the ones that are like, I get to make all the decisions. And so you get this weird kind of this weird kind of thing where sometimes executives think that they're the audience for the film. But oftentimes the executives are not the audience for the film, right? Like Little Mermaid is not made for Jeffrey Katzenberg. Like
right.
They weren't like, let's think of how many Jeffrey Katzenbergs we can please by making Little Mermaid.
Right.
And so I think that anytime you have executive meddling. Now, the Pixar model I thought was under Lasseter and Catmull, I think was one of the best models that I've ever heard of, which is to say the executives never took the project or took the creative decisions away from the directors and the people working on the film. They would just say, here's my feedback about why it's not connecting with me. Right. And then they would let that person go back and fix it themselves. That's where I think that most executives should hang out. Point to the potential problems and then have somebody else be the one that the creatives that are working on it be the ones to solve those problems, as opposed to stepping in and being like, I'm going to solve your problem for you. That's where I think it really goes wrong.
100%. And Jonas, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. That means a lot. He's saying here for Jay preaching the truth about WB doing Zack Snyder dirty. Yeah, they did. They absolutely did. They absolutely did. But Jonas, yeah, it's awesome having you here. I love having, because obviously, like hey, you know, I'm not going to hide it. I disagree with Jonas a lot, right? When it comes to Disney or what have you. And it's really cool to have, you know, him in here talking shop with us. And, you know, we might not always agree, but I think it's kind of, it's important and healthy to have like this dialogue. And actually as fans, we probably agree more than we don't when we really sit down with each other, you know? So,
well, let me compliment Jonas on one thing that Jonas is really awesome at that almost no one is. Most people on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it these days cannot have a discussion that is healthy and productive, and it always turns into some kind of name calling or people. But Jonas keeps it very above board and actually reasons with people, and I appreciate that about Jonas. So thank you, Jonas.
Absolutely. And we got Leo CH in the house. What do you think is the best Disney prince? This is funny. You know, it's weird. A lot of the Disney princes of like yesteryear are kind of like these cardboard, kind of like personality-less kind of characters that are just kind of there. In my opinion, that's kind of how I see them. And it's going to sound kind of weird because I was just hating on Aladdin because he's got everything and I'm just an Aladdin hater. But like, he's kind of, I mean, he's a prince, right? Prince Ali Ababa, you know? Yeah. I mean, he's the most interesting though. I mean, he's fun, you know? I got to go with Aladdin or Prince Ali. What do you think, George? Who's your favorite Disney prince?
Mine is Prince Naveen of Princess and the Frog. I love his kind of slick, debonair kind of attitude. And one of my favorite lines in the movie, which I used it as a lot of pickup lines, and I go, unless you beg for more.
You use a lot of pickup lines? That's pretty a George thing?
It's a George thing.
Fantastic.
This is George's secrets to landing cast members, dude. He's got his line.
Just quote a Disney character, and it's like,
there you go. There you go. Jay, awesome. Who's your favorite Disney prince? Do you have one even? Or
so I was also gonna say Aladdin, because Aladdin is sort of, he started from the bottom. Now he's here. So I love that. But I'm gonna choose a different one instead. I'm gonna choose Flynn Rider, because Flynn Rider has a really great sense of humor, and I think that he is. I think that he's one of these guys that is way too arrogant, and then it kind of learns how to properly behave. The other shout out that I would give, and I don't think it's officially a Disney prince, but he should be, and that's Mowgli. Mowgli should be a Disney prince, if you ask me. Yeah. He's a star of the film. We can call him a prince. I also like Mowgli. So those are my top three right there.
100%. Kaylee, friend of the channel, Kaylee says here, Al from Toy Story 2, or Big Al from Country Bears. Now, here's the thing, real quick, Jay, with Kaylee. She wants us to do a Story Geeks episode.
Yeah,
a deep dive into Al. Is that correct, George? Is that what?
That is correct. Yeah.
Nice. So we should definitely do that. Maybe we can make an overall just Toy Story deep dive, and then have the Al part.
I was actually kind of thinking, and I was kind of throwing that at her as like the concept of like, because Al is in Toy Story 2, and how much the sequel kind of overshadowed the original, which doesn't really happen a lot. Normally the original, is like the best. I mean, take an extremely goofy movie, Jay. I mean, you're the one who seen the second one thinking it was the first, and you're like, what is this? Like, why?
I blew it. My wife. I tried to show my wife. I'm like, the Goofy movie's awesome. I showed her the wrong one. And I'm like, oh, whoops.
That's crazy. That's great. So, Al from Toy Story 2 or Al from Country Bears. I got to go Big Al from Country Bears. I'm a Big Al guy. I got a Big Al shirt, actually. I like that dude a lot. It's a shame that we don't have our Country Bears here at Disneyland anymore. But I'm going Country Bears. What about you, Jay? You going Country Bears? You going Toy Story?
Are we talking about Al McWiggin? Talking about Al McWiggin from Toy Story 2? Is that what we're talking about?
The toy barn guy.
Toy guy. Yeah. I'm gonna go with him, man. Like, what a ridiculous character to have in a Toy Story movie. I love that. Why not have a ridiculous character like that? I dig that. I'm going with Al from Toy Story.
He's going Al Toy Story. What are you going with, George?
I have to go with Big Al. He's just a classic character. I love the Country Bears, and then just watching that show when Big Al comes out, I go, blood on the saddle. It's
fantastic. Now some of the park IP is really good, right? It's really, really good stuff. One of my favorite characters of all time is Captain Rex from Star Tours. I absolutely love that character. I think he's fantastic. I actually got a little Rex over here. You probably can't even see him, but he's great. I love that he found a new home in Galaxy's Edge at the bar. It's awesome. And some of his programming from the attraction is kind of weaved in beautifully with his DJ stuff. Great character. Really, really cool park IP there. And rest in peace to Mr. Paul Rubin.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Ebba says here, guys, how is the King Kong portion of the tram? I have not been to Universal Hollywood since they removed E.T. and Back to the Future. Ebba, this is crazy. It's
okay. Go ahead, OG.
I was just saying, for all the kind of crap I give Universal, I actually go quite a bit. I have a pass. Honestly, I probably go about as much as Disney. Like, I average about once a month. I go to Universal Hollywood. But one of my favorite things at Universal Hollywood is a tram tour. I love the Universal tram tour. The King Kong portion, it's okay, Ebba. I mean, I don't know. For me, I like the sound stages and the edutainment part of the tram.
Yeah.
These kind of screen tunnels that they do now.
Yeah. Okay. Here I go, because this is like what really pisses me off. So I absolutely love the tram. I have to say, at Universal Hollywood,
it's amazing.
That is like the crown jewel of that park. And it is like, if you don't do anything, just do the tram, you could have a fulfilling day at Universal Hollywood. Just saying. When it comes to the King Kong portion, it's basically just like Skull Island down in the one in Orlando. And again, even going to the Fast and the Furious, oh god, supercharged. They have that notion of where it's like you have to be looking all around you, so you're turning your head literally back and forth,
Right.
where you're then missing something, and it's just I don't know, it's just not appealing really. Like the technology has come a long way that they can handle it so much better. I mean, they handled it well with Transformers. They handled it well with the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. So when you put Kong and Fast and Furious up against it, it's like, I think that's like my least favorite part of the tram. I absolutely love going through the set pieces. As I mentioned before, I actually got to see the actual Back to the Future set piece with the clock tower and everything. And I swear, as I said, the hairs on my arms stood straight up. And as I said, I'm Italian. I have a lot of hairs. So, I mean, it's...
Yeah, no, the tram tour is an amazing experience. If you haven't done it over in Hollywood, definitely do it. It really is the gem of that park, in my opinion. Yeah. It's amazing. Like you said, like George was saying, they have Back to the Future sets. They have the, Steven Spielberg War of the Worlds with the giant plane.
Yes.
The Tom Cruise movie, right?
Yes.
It's incredible stuff. So definitely check it out. Jay, when was the last time you've been to Universal Hollywood? Has it been a while? I
guarantee you it was before Michael. I think we have pictures of me at Universal Studios Hollywood when I was about 6 years old, and I don't remember the last time I've been since then.
Michael wasn't even a twinkle in his mom's eye.
No, he was not. No. I'm out here with OG being one of the real OGs. We're too old for this stuff. But I will say a couple things. I did have a trip planned to Universal Studios Hollywood for March of 2020. Worst time that you could possibly have planned something. We had to cancel the whole trip. We weren't going very far. I lived in Southern California at the time. We were just going to go down the street and go. But I will say this about Skull Island, since you brought it up, George. That ride is two of the most interesting things that I've ever seen. Phenomenal animatronics on that ride.
No, that's the one in Florida, right?
Yeah, that's the one in Florida.
Yes.
There's two animatronics that are mind-blowing. Like there's the what is he, the shaman or whatever?
The shaman, yeah, the Q. The Q is phenomenal.
Is phenomenal. And then there's the giant animatronic when you get to the end. I love that one too. In the middle, this is what's so strange to me. And I hate to turn this into this discussion because it's not really on the right path, but I'm going to do it anyways. For Universal to have so many rides with screens, why don't they get them right more than they get them wrong? Like that whole portion of screens when you're on the Kong, what is it, Skull Island, whatever it's called?
Yeah, Reign of Kong.
Yeah, Reign of Kong is awful. It's awful. They did not nail that at all. And so all the parts where you're in the Jeep and you're seeing the animatronics and you're seeing the things around you, cool. As soon as you see screens, not it, man. Not it.
Some of it, you're right. Some of it doesn't work. Out here in Hollywood, our Fast and Furious ride, or it's not even a ride. It's a tunnel, a screen tunnel as part of the tram. Now, for me, it doesn't really work for this franchise because you're going 90 miles an hour on the freeway on a tram. It just feels off to me. You know what I'm saying?
Or even done in Florida, even more worse. You have this phenomenal franchise about like speed and cars, and forgive my language, folks, but they put us on a fucking tour bus. Like, I mean, like really, like that's what you're gonna like put up against these like hot rod, like kick ass cars. It's like
it's weird. Yeah, some of that stuff is weird. The Fast and Furious thing though, I think is short-lived out here in California. We have a friend of the channel, Theme Park Wizard. He does a lot of great content on the construction for that Fast and Furious coaster coming. So I think when we get that, they're probably gonna ixnay on the super.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, with that coaster, I will say this: it could very well just be like a typical Universal roller coaster. However, I will say of how they are building it and the placement of it is actually quite genius.
Oh yeah,
I think that's gonna like really put like the thrill like notch like up. And I know you guys, you're probably looking at that like sweating in your knickers, and it's like
yeah, we'll wait at the gift shop for you, George. Have fun, buddy. Have fun. Michael Ebba here says, OG, can you show us your soundboard? How hilarious would it be if you used it for work when you talk to your boss? Haha. No, that's funny. I should, huh? I should use the drops. No, I actually can't though show you because it's it would get unplugged and everything. It would mess it up. But what I'll do, Michael Ebba, is I'll go ahead and take some pictures of it and then I'll send it to you via DM on Twitter. Absolutely. It's a Roadcaster. And that's where I get all the drops and everything, the various sound effects and things like that. But yeah, I'll take some pictures. And I'll send it to you on Twitter. Unfortunately, with the wires and stuff, if I pulled it off, it would just cause all kinds of problems for the show.
I think we should all vote for OG to this week when he's talking to his supervisor, be like, I could use a raise and then hit the money drop.
Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I think that would be maybe what we should.
Oh, you know what? Jay, I actually got a new money drop.
You have a new money drop.
I always talk about this. It's kind of funny. Like the money drops I have is Lisa, right? The Lisa. But my favorite member of Blackpink is actually Jenny. Right? I never had a Jenny drop.
Too.
This money. Yeah, this is fair. So this drop is actually featuring Jenny. I'll go ahead and play it for you right now. Rock and roll, boys. Where is she? Where is it? Okay.
I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind. Yo, it ain't really work if you're proud.
There we go.
Nice.
So we got a little Jenny money drop. Okay, so Ebba here says, who creates the intro music and how do you come up with the music tracks per different Orange video? So OG55, Citrus Corner, Story Geeks, etc. Okay, so this is interesting. What Story Geeks, we'll get to that in a second because that's actually Jay's production. For OG, I actually use a site called Fiverr.com. And it's amazing. You can choose various freelance artists. They do work in like editing, voiceover stuff. You can just make a YouTube trailer, a YouTube intro. So I have a few artists I go to pretty consistently who do my intros and what have you. And I've been really happy with it. Now they choose the music. I basically with the music, I just kind of tell them what kind of type of music I want to use and that it needs to be copyright like free. So if I'm going to play it all the time here, I'm not going to keep getting dinged for a copyright. That's pretty much it. But yeah, shout out to the Fiverr artists. They do amazing work over there. It's affordable. You can get YouTube stuff for like $10 all the way up to like $500, If you want like animation that looks like, like Pixar quality animation, you're paying like, $300, $400, $500. But if you just want like a cool little intro for your YouTube channel, $10, $15, $20, it's a great website. Definitely check it out. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jay in terms of your Story Geeks intro and your music. How did that come about?
Yeah, so originally the Story Geeks logo, which I think you've probably seen when we made it an orange version of it for when we came over to Orange Grove 55. That was designed by, illustrated by Nathan Sheck, who is a co-writer of No Vacancy and a co-writer of Death of the Bounty Hunter and good friend of mine. And then we had a guy local in Orange County who my co-host of the Story Geeks podcast, Daryl Smith, shout out to Daryl. He knew a guy who did animation. So he took the Story Geeks logo and then animated it, which was awesome. And then gave us to that. And he did that for free for us. He did it for free. He thought
wow.
It was cool. So that's how we got our animation. For when you see the Story Geeks more, and you see the Gandalf mic kind of drop down a little bit. That was all part of it.
Here, I got to play it. Not I got to play the Story Geeks. Hold on. Here we go.
There's three microphones. Yeah, there are three microphones there too. So yeah, Batman microphone, obviously a Rebel Pilot microphone, and then
that's awesome.
Gandalf. Yeah.
I love that intro. I absolutely love that intro. Mr. Matthew Murr, all the way from the UK. Why do you think, Matthew, you're still up? What time is it over there in the UK? Why do you think only Bear in the Big Blue House and Muppets acquired by Disney in 2004, with most other Jim Henson properties left out of the acquisition? That's a good question, because like Sesame Street, is that Jim Henson? I think so, technically, right?
Yes and no. They were created by the Jim Henson, but yet it's like they are owned through the public broadcasting, through the television workshop and what have you. So I don't know if Henson has full ownership of Sesame Street. I mean, I know there's something involved in there because they also incorporate the Muppets in with Sesame Street and vice versa. But yeah, Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock.
That was a great show.
I love that show. That was like, oh, man, now I'm really dating myself. I don't know. Was there anything else? I know Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock. Yeah, they weren't part of the initial acquisition.
Yeah. Are you a big Muppets person? I was just saying to Jay. I think you dipped out. We'll move on to our next one. Actually, the next one's for Jay, though. Hold on 1 second. Okay, he's got some doggy. He's got a dog to tend
Doggy
to.
duties.
Jay.
Sorry about that, fellas.
Oh no, you're good.
Dog had to be let out.
Yeah, no. If you have a dog, though, our friend Kaylee here probably want to see it. My dog made its world premiere appearance the last video we did.
No way! I didn't know you had a dog.
And so did mine. Actually, all three of our dogs, me, OGs, and Slimers.
Oh, that's
all made.
amazing.
Yeah. My dog's name is Mickey. Like, hey, I'm a shilly. You know what I'm saying?
So is mine. We got two Mickeys.
Yeah,
we got two Mickeys. Oh,
two Mickeys.
I've got a Gatsby.
Oh, nice.
Great Gatsby.
You call him the Great Gatsby?
Sometimes when he's being a good boy.
So Michael Ebba. Oh, go ahead, George.
No, I was just going to say, Jay, sorry, wrong studio.
Yeah. I know.
Mr. Ebba here says for Jay, I love the Jay questions. This is fantastic. How many hats do you own? I always see you're matching your hats with your outfits 100%. How many hats, Jay?
I think I probably own a dozen hats. Yeah. So okay, here's the story for you. I have a shaved head because I'm bald, right? So I shave my head. And it is a total pain because if you're outside, you can get sunburn. If you are doing videos, you can get shine off the top of your head. And I hate putting makeup on the top of my head. It's not fun. So I was just like, especially because my day job is that I am a fractional CMO or fractional chief marketing officer for small businesses. And so most of the time I'm working with small businesses, they don't care how I'm dressed. And so I just get to wear hats most times. And it's nice because the only bummer is that I don't get a good head tan all the time because sometimes I wear the hats too much. So in the summer I got to get a good head tan going. But yeah, I own a lot of hats. And so when you start to own a lot of hats, what you don't want to do is, especially if you're wearing them in like business settings, you don't want that you don't want to like give off the wrong vibe to your clients. You want them to think you're responsible. So you try to match and you try to make it look presentable. So it doesn't look like I'm just going to a baseball game or something like that, Right. And that's why I have so many hats.
So no backwards or like off to the side.
I don't do that very often. No.
Like Rockefeller, y'all, you got the
right, exactly.
None of that. Exactly. What about you? Now you have quite a few hats, George. I mean, you're wearing one.
Yes, I do.
And now, do you always wear these kind of hats? Or are you kind of a baseball hat or a mix, or what do you do?
Well, for me, I was actually never into hats. I got actually into them as I got older. I do love certain baseball hats, but I love the ones that aren't like the snap or the belt. They're just the I don't even know like the technical term. They're just it covers like the whole front part of your head. Right. With the flap, because I wear those backwards. And then my signature hat is I love fedoras. Of course, I'm the Italiano. What can you expect? So absolutely. I have about like 7 or 8 different fedoras.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have about 4 or 5. We should compare fedoras at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, we should do a show on it. We'll go like 2 hours all about fedoras.
Yeah. I almost sent you guys a picture of myself. Because we went out for New Year's Eve, and I have a wide brim fedora that's pretty straight, and I put on a black blazer, and I'm like, I was gonna send it to you guys and be like, look guys, I'm hunting Roger Rabbit.
Nice.
A little bit like
nice.
Looked a little bit. We just talked about that, but I thought
yeah, our friend Maybe actually, I think if she's still in the chat, she actually checked out Roger Rabbit for the first time.
No way.
And she saw it for the first time, and she tweeted about it. She was like, "I understand the hype. I understand the hype."
Well, now, okay, so here's the question: maybe are you on Team J that Roger Rabbit is really annoying, or are you with these guys that he's supposed to be annoying and it's great?
Yeah. In the comments, maybe what do you think? What are your thoughts on Roger Rabbit as a character? Tayo here says, hey all, let me ask this, George, why is Walt Disney World being starved of a nighttime parade? We need one, or at least a new daytime parade. This is the lifelong question.
Yes.
We don't understand. Disneyland kind of has a little bit of a rotation with these nighttime parades. But Florida, I mean, you guys are on you're going through a drought. You know what I'm saying? It's been a while.
It's been a long while. Great question, by the way, and thank you for it. It's just one of those things. Like, we had Spectro Magic for the longest time. I mean, like, that was the OG nighttime parade at Walt Disney World. Everyone, tuned in at the end of their Magic Kingdom day to either, camp out on Main Street or, head through the path at the end part where Frontierland is, and you'd watch Spectro Magic. Now, I do know that they temporarily took it out. They brought in the Main Street Electrical Parade for a limited time, and then went back to Spectro Magic. But yeah, I don't know why they would ever consider not bringing back some form of a nighttime parade. It just baffles me.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have a more straightforward answer, but it's like they just won't.
I think some of it has to do with out here in California, Disneyland Resort. It's very local driven, It is. It's very local driven. So you need kind of a constant refresh of entertainment to keep people like Magic Key holders are here like every week. You know what I'm saying? They're very frequent at this park, and you in Florida, you don't really, you have annual pass holders, but you don't have like what we have out here. So I think there's just like this idea at Disney where it's like, we need to constantly have like a new show, a new parade or something. That's why we have the holiday stuff, like the Haunted Mansion holiday, things like that. Mm-hmm. It keeps it different for people that are going all the time, the locals. I think that's an element here with that. I think in Florida, you have a lot of tourism. People aren't going to these parks over there weekly or bi-weekly like they are out here. So Florida just doesn't think that it's really all that necessary, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just part of the cost cutting, unfortunately.
Yeah, but what if they did an OG nighttime parade?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
And that is actually courtesy of Fiverr. It was a voiceover guy who does the Disney coming attractions. When you would watch the old VHSs of the Disney movies?
Yeah.
And they would do like the coming up next year, Pocahontas, Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a guy who does that voice. I'm like,
Are you serious? He's on Fiverr too? No way.
It's not that guy, but he does that voice though.
He does the voice. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. He's expensive though. That guy, man. I'm telling you, he's expensive. Kaylee here says, not going to lie, Electrical Parade kind of went hard in DCA. Yeah, it kind of did. Electrical Parade always goes hard, though. You know what I'm saying? That's, as Kaylee would say, that's a banger parade. A real banger.
Speaking of Main Street Electrical Parade and nighttime parades in Florida, nighttime is when it's comfortable in Florida. You know what I mean? Like come on, do the nighttime stuff more often.
Right?
It's kind of crazy.
It's funny. Like my first time in Florida was this past July, and in July. Obviously it's gonna be in Florida. It's gonna be hot, but it was like, it was really uncomfortable. The weather. It was like I just was constantly wet or sticky.
There was a time when I was in WDW in July. And literally, you would feel like you were cooking from the inside when you were just standing there. You'd be like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening to my body?" Yeah, it gets real warm there. Wild.
It's funny when we landed at the MCO airport, George?
MCO, yeah.
MCO. I was so excited. I'm like, my first time in Florida, and all I kept hearing about was the humidity, right? I told George, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go outside. I gotta see this. I gotta feel this humidity for myself. So I go out there and I'm like, oh my God, you can like feel the air. It's so thick. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah. A friend of the channel, Mr. Marty Snyder. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Snyder. He says here, he's talking about, I think he was referring to the Disneyland Paris conversation we were having earlier, but he says the French love to protest. Yes, they do. And their protests are crazy. They go nuts. Balls to the wall, as George would say. They were all over Paris again just a year ago. The CMs were, and they were like in the park too, protesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, it was wild, absolutely wild. And the Girly Nerd is here. First live show I've caught in a long time. Great to see you. It's great to see you, Girly Nerd. It's always good to see you. In the chat. Got a few comments here about the protests in Paris. Yeah, they protest for their rights. They aren't afraid and they don't back down. Yeah, it's wild. Girly Nerd here says her question is: there are a lot of quote, "What have you done for me lately?" end quote type of attitude from many fans. I feel like the parks are never allowed to breathe and just be. Will we ever see that again? That's an interesting perspective, Gerliner. You're right. It's always go, 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 right? And actually, we did a show yesterday that premiered today about 2024 and beyond for Walt Disney World. And when you really look at the last like maybe 5 or 6 years though at Walt Disney World, it's actually gotten quite a bit of investment. You've had Pandora, a massive expansion for Animal Kingdom. You had Galaxy's Edge just a couple years later. We've had like Ratatouille, Cosmic Rewind, Tron. That's not even including some of the more minor stuff like the Frozen Ever After kind of retheme overlay for Epcot. It's gotten some stuff, you know, but you're the first person, Girly, that's actually brought this up where it's like, well, wait a minute. Can we slow down? I've never heard. That's an interesting perspective. What are your thoughts on that, George? Should they slow down or should they turbocharge?
I think honestly, I think honestly, it's just finding a complete balance to kind of mesh the two together. I feel like, you know, they really shouldn't go so much of balls to the wall, you know, where you're doing so much at once, because honestly, that's what Universal's doing right now with all these projects, and sometimes that can be just too much of an overload. However, you know, but I do think there should be like a balance there where, you know, you still want to keep your fans and the guests interested to say, you know what, I want to come back again. I want to invest more of my money because this is coming on the horizon. So I want to be there for when this opens and when that opens. So I definitely get that. But I do have a great appreciation, especially for the amount of times that I'm able to visit the Disney parks. And I'm just very blessed and fortunate that I can literally say I go so many times that I don't have to be in that go rush mode. And I feel like Disney kind of put themselves in a position where it comes to the fans that, especially for the normies or those first timers or those people that don't go as often, they have to utilize Genie Plus. They have to utilize the reservation system. They have to constantly be on their phones. Otherwise, they're putting out the money for their vacation is set in vain. So it's almost like before it was, okay, you stay off of your phone to go to a Disney park. Now it's like it's encouraged that you have to go on your phone. Yeah. As I said, luckily I'm in a position that I don't really have to do that, but I do think that Disney really needs to take the approach to kind of slow down the notion that sometimes not always using technology for everything is always the better thing.
Well, and we talked about this, Jay. We all talked about this when you came back from your trip, your Disneyland resort trip, where it's like totally different experiences with these parks, right? Where it's like, for me, I'm a local. I'm at the parks like once or twice a month at Disneyland, so I'll pop in and I'll hang out, and I won't even go on a ride. Yeah. So my connection to the technology is a lot less. I really only use it to scan into the parks and to mobile order my food. So it's very limited, as opposed to like you're from out of state, you're flying in. Obviously there's going to be more of a focus on the attractions. Now you got to get a Genie Plus, a lightning lane, and this, that, and the other. So now you're like living on this thing, you know, it's a completely different experience. In terms of Girly Nerd's question, it's a balancing act, I think. Yeah. You know, you like George was saying, you want to invest in your parks. But you also do want to give a little bit of a breather, right? Like, for example, DCA, it got $1 billion renovation that kind of culminated. It was a multi-year thing, but it got rededicated. It culminated in 2012, right?
Correct.
After something like that, this big kind of renovation of an entire park, I think you can kind of like let the dust settle for 3 or 4 years. I don't think you got to jump into now another project. I think it's kind of nice to enjoy no construction walls, just enjoy the new thing that we got and let that kind of sit for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And you can do that with theme parks. A lot of people ask, okay, why is Disney spending more money on the streaming and the studio side? Because that has higher churn. You have to constantly pour money into the streaming service and the studio stuff because the movie's only in theaters for a few weeks and it goes on the streamer, and that's basically the end of the road, you know? But a theme park thing, you build an attraction, that thing can garner returns for you for years. It has a longer shelf life than a movie would or a TV show would, right? Like who's watching Ahsoka right now, right? I mean, it's already gone. Like, but if you were to build an e-ticket like a Cosmic Rewind, you're still seeing benefits from that, and it's been open for a while. So that's kind of my take on it. What's your take on this, Jay?
I agree with both of you, but I'm gonna keep picking on Disney PR for a second, only because so let's picture. I think the 2010s, in my opinion, were one of the highest highs of Disney decades. Right? I think that they just killed it in the 2010s. Iger was perceived as one of the best business leaders out there. One of the things that they did was they started to pour more into the parks. We had the Buena Vista Street renovation. We had a lot of different things happening in the parks. And Iger used that as an excuse to charge more. And he kept the prices going up every single year. We kept seeing the prices go up. Well, here's the thing. When you keep increasing prices, you need to keep giving people a reason to pay those prices. Right. You can't just sit there and be like, okay, you should just come back and have the exact same experience you had the last time you were here. And they were incentivizing, especially at Disneyland, they were incentivizing the local experience. And so then they're releasing things like festivals. They're doing updates all the time. Now they're getting a little bit, I think, creatively bankrupt in that they feel the need to announce more stuff more than they should feel that, because they're raising prices. They are trying to keep up with the vloggers. They're trying to keep up with this flywheel that they've built that was, we're going to constantly have new stuff in the park all the time. You got to come for the new popcorn bucket. You got to pay us money for the popcorn bucket. You got to show up for the new churro flavor that we're going to have. You got to do the churro thing where you go around and taste all the different churros. And now you're getting into a place where you're creating a flywheel that is for a specific type of small group of people who are able to go that often. And now for people like me, probably for people like I'm getting the name wrong. I'm Nerdy Girl. Is it Nerdy Girl?
Girly Nerd.
Girly Nerd. Shout out to Girly Nerd. She's amazing. That gives us this, what have you done for me lately? Because you're charging me. And now I'm looking for like, well, what's the next big announcement? And then you're not doing it. You're not doing a thing. Oh, you're only giving me popcorn buckets. Now I'm sick of popcorn buckets, and I don't want to pay more for popcorn. So I think that Disney has worked themselves into. It used to be that their ads were like, they'd be like, be in with the in crowd. They weren't advertising a new thing necessarily, but they'd say, come bring your family, create more memories. And that was their corporate. That's kind of stayed consistent. Corporate branding, kind of good. But this PR stuff where it's like, tell the vloggers they've got to get out here and do this thing, have this new thing so that the vloggers can be out there. They're very much catered to a lot of the vlogger community. And that's what keeps that what have you done for me lately mentality going. So I kind of blame some of what they're doing, to be honest with you, in creating that mentality.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. Let me see here. Slimer, for everyone, what are your top 5 most anticipated movies of 2024? This is the funny thing. I don't even think I have 5. I'm looking forward to, and our friend Seymour here says, I agree with him here. Hold on one second. Let me pull this up real quick. I am looking forward to Deadpool 3. I would agree with Seymour Duck on that. Absolutely. I'm actually really looking forward to Beetlejuice 2. The young lady, her name,
Jenny Ortega.
Yes, I think she's phenomenal. I loved her in Wednesday, and she's really hot right now. I think this movie's going to do very well. Just with her in it alone, I think it's going to crush. So I'm excited for those two. Ghostbusters. I haven't seen the last one though, so I kind of have to catch up on that. I know Slimer's in the Ghostbusters, obviously, but
his toes are cringing in those socks right now.
Yeah, they're curly, man. He's excited. Yeah, I those 3 movies though, Seymour, brother, I would agree with you, man. That's kind of like where I'm at with movies for 2024. I'm curious about Inside Out 2. I think that little anxiety character is adorable. You know, she kind of reminds me of a like a Fraggle Rock. Yeah. We'll see how they do with that one. I mean, it kind of has the same energy as the first movie. If they can kind of duplicate that same magic, I think it'll do really well. My only fear with that one though is I kind of feel like it might actually end up doing like elemental numbers. I don't know. We'll see. I'm hoping it does better than that. Go ahead.
I'm actually kind of with both of you on that. I definitely Deadpool 3. I think Deadpool 3 is like my number one go-to movie that I think that we're all. Beetlejuice, I'm curious about. It looks enticing to how like they handled the original. Ghostbusters, you can't go wrong, especially when they add the original cast to it. I am curious about Inside Out 2, and believe it or not, I'm actually curious about, I mean, I'm more so just curious of how the storyline is going to work out, but Mufasa, the prequel to the live action Lion King. I'm very curious to see more so an original concept of how Mufasa actually became the king of the Pride Land. So I think that's very interesting. So I guess that would be my 5. Deadpool 3, Beetlejuice 2, Ghostbusters, Inside Out 2, and Mufasa.
There you go.
Those are my 5.
What about you, Jay? What are you feeling?
I got Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. I think that's going to be cool. I'm always down for a new Lord of the Rings deal. I am also interested in a film called, I was just on it just a second ago, Borderlands, which was originally an Eli Roth film. I don't love all of Eli Roth's films. He's usually very, very brutal. But Deadpool's Tim Miller did some reshoots for it, and it has a fantastic cast: Cate Blanchett, Jack Black, Kevin Hart, Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's like a weird sort of sci-fi video game type of movie. So I'm kind of interested in that. Yeah. Have to triple down on Deadpool 3. That's going to be fantastic.
Absolutely.
I am interested in Inside Out 2. One that hasn't been mentioned yet, but probably comes in just outside the top 5 is Ballerina, which is the film with Ana de Armas, which is a branching off of the John Wick series, but focused on the ballerina crew. Excuse me. And I would say that the last one on here that I'm interested in is probably Furiosa, which is the Mad Max.
Oh, that's interesting.
Deal. Yeah,
okay. Good list.
Because what was the name of the Fury Road was so good. So I'm interested in the Furiosa one too.
Absolutely. Kaylee here with 2 E's says, OG, what is your hair care routine with 3 E's? I like that. It's funny. I don't really have a routine. It's funny because when I was younger, Kaylee, even before high school, like I would fight it, like my hair, right? Like I would try to comb it to the side or whatever, and it would just always stick up. Like, I guess it's just the way my hair parts or whatever. So I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm going to go with where it wants to go. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I do now. And I've had a very similar hairstyle for so many years, but yeah, not really anything too crazy. It kind of goes up, and so I don't need to give it too much. I have like my favorite gel. It's more like almost like a hair glue. It actually looks just like glue. It's white and everything. And I just put a little bit in there, kind of use my hands, and the rest is history. So yeah. And like I always say, Kaylee, the taller the hair, the closer to Walt, right? 100%. All right. Matthew Murr here says, this might be hard for Jay to answer. Jay, here we go. But who's your absolute favorite princess? My favorite is either Cinderella or Rapunzel, since they probably are the absolute most easygoing Disney characters. Who's your favorite?
You know what? It's not hard for me to answer at all, because my favorite is easily Tiana. From the moment I saw Princess and the Frog, Tiana, this is what I love about Tiana. Tiana is an entrepreneur who's trying to take on her father's legacy and go and even build on top of that. And I thought that was so cool of a story to have for a princess. And the way that she addresses that whole film, and the way that it actually reverses some of the tropes of Kiss a Frog and what happens, right. I thought that was phenomenal. So I like Tiana. Tiana's my favorite.
Awesome. I'm gonna go Ariel for a few reasons. Number one, I absolutely am a huge Glenn Keane fanboy, the animator that created Ariel, and also the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. What he did with the Beast was absolute genius, where you can take a character that's supposed to be scary and unlikable and then flip it and make him lovable at the same time. That juxtaposition that he was able to accomplish with that character was absolute brilliant. absolutely brilliant. So I respect Glenn Keane a whole lot. I wish he was still at Disney, but he retired a few years ago. But Ariel, I love that character. I think she's fantastic. And I love, the thing with Ariel and just The Little Mermaid in general, it was a moment in Disney history where Disney animation was really not doing so hot at that time, and Mermaid came in and sort of just like turbocharged the whole studio almost right out the gate, because you had Mermaid, and then Beauty and the Beast, and you had Aladdin and Lion King, and it triggered this whole Renaissance era, and it really did it saved the company. It saved animation for Disney, and A Little Mermaid was such a huge part of Disney. It just can't be understated. Plus, I am also a huge Howard Ashman fanboy. I love Howard Ashman and the passion and the brilliance that he put into these projects. So I'm going Ariel just for all those reasons. And she's fun, right? I think she's a lot of fun. What about you, George? Who's your favorite Disney princess?
Well, mine is a no-brainer, is Princess Jasmine. As I said, one of my favorite all-time.
It's those abs, huh, George?
Oh, of course. It goes well in hand. She got the abs. I got the chest. So it's like so yeah. For me, I mean, as I said, one of my favorite all-time. Well, the best Disney song for me is A Whole New World, and it's actually one of my top 10 best songs of all time. And of course, Lea Salonga, who does the singing voice of Jasmine, really brings life and character to her, or to another level, when she does perform that song with Brad Kane, who does the singing voice of Aladdin. Yeah. And then of course the live action Jasmine. I mean,
Naomi Scott.
Come on, like really, like
absolutely.
It's just like
absolutely. Here we go.
Which I love because what's actually funny is because in real life she actually has an accent in real life, Naomi Scott.
Yeah.
She has like a British accent, and I don't know. I find it fascinating when, especially with actors, when they hide their accent and you didn't know that they had an accent, and then when they talk, you're like, wait a minute, I didn't know that they were a Brit. It's like it's funny.
It is absolutely. Okay, Kaylee here says, if you could live at any Disneyland or Disney World Resort hotel, what would it be? This is a tough one, Kaylee. Like, if it wasn't limited to those two resorts, I would say Alani would win for me easily. I mean, come on, Hawaii? Come on, it's no brainer. For Florida, I've only been once. We stayed at the Poly, and I like that tiki-like vibe. The pool over there is amazing, too. I'm probably going to go Poly for Disney World. For Anaheim, that's easy. The Grand Cali. I love the Grand Californian. It's a beautiful hotel, really cozy, with all the woodwork and what have you. So yeah, that's what I would do.
You got mine, OG. That was my two. The Polynesian was always my favorite Walt Disney World resort hotel, even before I got the chance to stay in it. It's very, to talk about overall theming, like that was a hotel that Disney got right, and it's just one of those hotels. It's like when you walk into the lobby and you get that scent of the Polynesian. As I said, you could blindfold me. I've been to these hotels so many times that literally you could blindfold me, you could walk me in, and I will know which hotel I am standing in.
It's crazy, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it too, even in the windows, because it's so humid, man. And there's like water drops in the window crease. It's like,
especially in the morning. Like in the morning, like you get like all that dew point where you just like go out and you just see like just the water just coming down off the windows. And then of course over at Disneyland, I haven't stayed there yet, but it is still on my bucket list, is the Grand Californian, because I mean I've been in there many times. I just haven't stayed there, but I mean again, overall theming, phenomenal. I love like that upper northern California type of like in the cabins and up in the mountains with the pine trees and all that.
And I have a feeling the Grand Cali is probably Kaylee's favorite too, because she's a big Chippendale person, right? So I'm thinking Grand Cali. If you're a Chippendale person, the Grand Cali is where you want to be for sure. Well, what about you, Jay? Where would you be living at these resorts?
Have you stayed at Alani, by the way?
I have not. No.
Not
I
yet.
stayed at a resort right next door to Aulani, and I went over there a couple times, ate dinner there and stuff. And this is years ago. It's too crowded, man. It gets really, really, really crowded. And
Really?
it feels crowded, at least when I was there. It's a phenomenal, beautiful, beautiful resort. But when it comes to living somewhere, Kaylee, if I gotta live somewhere, then I want to have a little bit more of a chill vibe, right? So I know it's not at WDW, but Disney actually has a resort in Vero Beach, and I used to live in
Yes,
Vero
they do.
Beach while I was living in Florida. I would love to live at the Disney resort there in Vero Beach. But if you had me, you said, hey, no, you got to live on the actual property. Wilderness Lodge is phenomenal. It is the Grand Californian of Florida, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
That is
it doesn't feel, it feels removed, a little bit more removed to me than some of the other resorts do. Poly seems crowded, right? Even Grand Floridian seems like a lot of people are passing through there. They're on the monorail loop, but you go out to the Wilderness Lodge out there. That's fantastic. You feel like you're away from things. You feel like it's quiet. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we didn't check that one out, did we, George? When we were
We
down
didn't.
there?
I didn't get a chance to take you over there. I did have a reservation for Whispering Canyon, which I was really excited to have you see that for breakfast, but just like with scheduling. And that's the thing with Walt Disney World. It's like you can still try to like micromanage your time there, and then it's like you still only have so many hours in the day.
Right.
And
right.
it's like,
Well, and that's the beauty of it, though, right? I kind of see it like it gives me something to check out the next time we go.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
Michael Ebba here says, George, with as much a fan favorite and popularity, the Spider-Man ride is at Universal. Why did Disney opt for a shooter ride for Spidey? Wouldn't they want to try to make a better Spider-Man ride?
You, Michael, thank you for the question. Great question. Essentially, and I don't know the full story behind it, but I know that Disney was kind of tweaking with a ride pattern, and we had talked about it on the channel before. It was the swinging pendulum type of ride system, and when we kind of saw that, everyone kind of pointed to, okay, well, if they're going to do something with Marvel and the Avengers, obviously that's going to be Spider-Man. I think, honestly, if they would have used that type of ride system, I think that if it was like a suspended harness kind of like hanging down from the ceiling on this type of mechanism, kind of like one of those like robotic arms, and it kind of swings you into the scenes as it's on almost like a crane with wheels, and it kind of moves you and swings you at the same time, where it moves you in through the sets and kind of incorporate real life set pieces with a little bit of screen time. I think honestly that would have given the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man a run for its money.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know what the logistics were. I feel like a lot of the budget was going into the Avengers e-ticket, and at that time, and I feel like that was like their main priority, to say, okay, well, this is going to be the e-ticket, so we need kind of a lesser thrill. So yeah, let's just put in a shooter ride. I feel like the issue that they did was they should have utilized another Marvel character and not Spider-Man, because there you go with the comparison of having a great ride like the one in Universal. Because that ride, I'm sorry, that came out in 1999. That ride still kicks more ass than what rides are built today.
Now I know Jay has thoughts on web slingers, so I'll get to you in a second, Jay. My issues with web slingers is I think that, yeah, it is kind of the IP in that, but it's also the vehicles, because it's like, when I think Spider-Man, I think kind of like light on your feet, kind of smooth, right?
Yeah. They put us in these oversized toaster ovens.
Right. So you're the opposite of Spider-Man in those vehicles. You're heavy and clunky, and the thing's rattling as you're going through the seats. It's the opposite of Spidey, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So it just feels off for the character. I like the idea of a shooter. I think the idea of a shooter makes sense for Spider-Man because you're web slinging. I mean, it makes sense to have that element in a Spider-Man ride. I think that's pretty cool, actually. But I just think with the ride vehicles, if you could have done something like even like a Forbidden Journey where you're on that Kuka arm and you're kind of swinging and you're doing your thing, I think that would have been a lot more.
That would have been perfect. Yeah, even if they would have tamed it down, even with the that swinging pendulum type of thing, or
Right.
like as you had mentioned. Yeah, but still keep the logistics of like the the spidey web.
Right.
I think I agree with you actually, OG, that the ride vehicles kind of is lost in translation.
It is. And real quick, I got to give a shout out to tour guide Jackie, the Disney tour guide that we went on this
She
ride with.
made web slingers fun.
She made it so much fun. Like Jay, it was so funny. You know the tour guides over at Disneyland, they wear the plaid, right?
Yeah,
The jackets.
yeah.
They're all dressed up, right? Look real
Yeah.
nice. We get into this ride vehicle, right? We loved Jackie. It was like hanging with just like the homie. I mean, she was so down to earth and chill. We get into this ride vehicle and she takes her jacket off and she goes, "I do this for a living."
That's awesome.
We were dying. She was fantastic. But Jay, I know you have thoughts on web slingers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I will not tolerate any web slingers hate on my timeline because I love web slingers. But I have fun with web slingers. But I agree with everything you guys are saying. And if you made me choose between web slingers and the Orlando ride, I would pick the Orlando ride. The Orlando ride is one of the best rides. The Orlando ride is one of the best dark rides probably ever created. It's at least in the top 5, right? It's really, really great. What would you do for a Spider-Man ride? I mean, it's tough because, like you're saying, you do have to feel nimble. I like what they did because they basically said you're not Spider-Man, you're just helping Spider-Man solve a problem.
Right.
But I almost think, you know what? I don't even know if I would have made it a Spider-Man ride. I know Spider-Man is super, super, super popular. One of the top characters, honestly. But there's just so many other characters that they could have made rides with that feel like they would be more natural and don't feel like they'd be competing against the Florida ride. So I don't even think I would have picked Spider-Man, to be honest.
Yeah, and from what I understand, the reason why they went with Spider-Man is supposedly Spider-Man, in terms of Marvel, is a merch king.
Yes.
Like he sells.
Well, that's one of the frustrating things about that ride. Okay, so I love that ride. Will not tolerate any hate about web slingers on my timeline. But why are they having you buy stuff if you want to get more points? That drives me crazy, man. Now I'm playing mobile. Now I'm playing mobile app games at Disneyland after I've already paid a bunch of money to get there. Give me a break.
It screams the Chase Pack era though, right? It really does. It's pretty funny. Matthew Murr here says, "Who is your absolute favorite independent filmmaker?" For me, it's a cross between Quentin Tarantino and Ridley Scott. This one's easy for me. It's Jay Shear.
Yes, I'll take it any day.
I'll start with you, George, and I'll go to Jay. Well, who your favorite independent filmmaker?
Okay, so actually, as an independent filmmaker, Jay, come on. As I said, I watched the trailer, and I'm sitting there watching this thing, and it's like a cinematic like gold. It reminds me of a true trailer that I see like in the theaters or on TV, and I'm like sitting watching this thing. I'm like, I actually know the guy that is directing what I'm watching. Like, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But Matthew, you had mentioned mine, and it's actually Quentin Tarantino. I absolutely love his films. He's very risky with his choice of films, but he ends up finding a way to get it made, and he doesn't really apologize for it, and he just wants to tell great stories, whether it's like the Kill Bill films, whether it's Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight. One of my all-time favorite, again, one of my top 10 films of all time, and my favorite Quentin Tarantino film still to this day is Pulp Fiction. I absolutely love that movie. Royale with cheese. But as an honorable mention, now this isn't a director, but I take him very much as a filmmaker because this guy also had taken a lot of risks. He's no longer with us, and a lot of people may not even know him by name. Jay, you actually might know him. Saul Zaentz. And I loved as he was an independent producer where he put a lot of his own money into low-budget films that became cinematic masterpieces that actually ended up winning Academy Awards. Three of his films, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus, and The English Patient. 3 great films that a lot of times you wouldn't even think would even end up on the big screen, but he ended up putting, again, he risked it all. He put his own money into these films, and they ended up becoming great Oscar-winning films.
Absolutely. Jay, who's some of your favorite independent filmmakers?
It's funny because the definition of independent film is so tricky these days. Technically, what an independent film is supposed to be is like a film that was not created underneath a studio system, right? And technically, I think Tarantino can fit that bill. Although his later films, I'm not sure.
Kill Bill.
Yeah,
Kill Bill.
yeah, exactly. So I would probably give it to, given the being very constrained, I would actually give it to somebody who is not known for being an independent filmmaker anymore at all. I'm blanking on his name. Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau did Swingers. If you haven't seen Swingers,
love that movie.
Amazing movie. Have you seen Swingers, OG?
I have not.
My gosh. If you guys haven't seen Swingers, go watch Swingers. It's a phenomenal movie.
Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
I've seen Chef though, and I love Chef.
Oh yeah. No, Swingers is fantastic. And then he did a follow-up called Made, which is good too, but not as good as Swingers. So I would probably give it to Jon Favreau just because I know he started out like with those really, really, really tiny budgets and was able to make those. But Tarantino is a fantastic choice as well. I mean, talk about a guy who Tarantino is basically one of those film nerds who basically has all of what he knows is from watching thousands and thousands of movies. And so he's just like, he can pick whatever he wants to put in films. And that's really cool too. So that's what I would say.
Okay. So before we move on to our next question, and we're talking independent films, you want to watch Jay's trailer right now? Let's watch the trailer. Let's watch the trailer. It's about a minute, right?
It's a minute. Yeah, it's a minute and 10 seconds. Maybe.
Let's rock and roll. This is No Vacancy, Jay Shear.
Today's guest, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist whose work has literally changed the world.
What is it?
A fortune has been spent trying to answer that question.
How did you track it to me?
Let's not draw this out.
Dropping out of the political landscape to focus solely on covering a new phenomenon, the rise of superpowered humans.
We should forgive our enemies, but not before they're hanged.
I know who you are, Lazarus!
Truth is a dangerous weapon.
Sometimes I wish you would just trust me.
Was it worth it?
We like Miss Larson. Everything's fiction. The question is whether or not it's to be believed.
Lee Larson, welcome.
What advice would you give to a newbie?
My advice? Screw journalism.
Yes. Jay Shear. Now, do we have any word on release dates, anything like that yet, Jay? Or
No, I'm going to reach out. Actually, for those of you who want to send good vibes, or if you're a praying person, you can pray. My DP / co-director, his mom is she's having a lung problem, and it's pretty serious. So I've been trying to not bother him too much this week and ask him how all that stuff's going, because he's the one that's kind of working on the edit. So I don't have a date yet, but I'm hoping for February and maybe March, depending on how all that goes. But I'm going to try to get a loose date maybe this week, and then we'll look at some options for how we could premiere it. So
awesome.
We'll be coming out with that information, I would say, in probably the next couple weeks here.
Cool. And stay tuned to OG55. We'll break all the news, and we'll keep you guys updated on that for sure.
And you guys have been so great. I hope that people, if you enjoyed the trailer at all, please go listen to OG interview myself and Colleen, because it was so cool to have Colleen there and watch that, be with her and talk about some of that stuff again. Really, really fun. Phil, who plays Lazarus Lagmani, the villain in this, he wants to join us at some point in time too, so we'll have Phil on and talk to Phil about his all of his stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was such a great experience. I just am so appreciative of you guys for being so supportive. It's been really fantastic. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to check it out. Can't wait to check it out.
Yeah,
And
there's like certain things like when you watch a trailer, sometimes that could like make or break a full length feature film, a short, or it all depends on how it gravitates and captures the audience. And
right.
that trailer does everything because, as I said, every time that I watch it, it's like, can this thing just be released? Because I just like really want to see it in its whole entirety.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Slimer here says Paramount just removed every Star Trek movie off their streaming service and licensed them out to Netflix. Bigger implications or just short-term gain? I mean, it looks like they're doing the Zazie route, the David Zaslav thing, where Zazie does this a lot, where he kind of licenses out the Warner Brothers stuff. Look, I mean, it's from a business perspective, I think it makes sense. That's where you make your money when you do that. It's a little different for Disney, in my opinion, because Disney's always been sort of this insular thing, right? It's like, we had like, I don't know, it's Disney's always kind of wanted to have that control of their own property. And so I feel like it's kind of weird to have Disney kind of outsourcing this stuff out to other streamers and what have you. I'm not completely against it. It just feels less okay for some reason. Maybe I'm just a nerd. I am a nerd, but I don't know. It feels less okay to have like a Snow White, for example, on Netflix or something, right? It just belongs on a Disney streamer, in my opinion. But with these other studios, like a Paramount, even like maybe a Warner Brothers, it feels a little more okay to do that. And hey, it makes some money. So in terms of its bigger implications, yeah, because I think there is a future in that. Obviously the streaming like ambitions that these studios had, where we're each going to have our own platform and our stuff is only going to live on our platform. I think that mentality is sort of dying away, right? And they realize they're not making money off of that. They got to get a little more creative here. So I think there is big implications, and I do think that a lot of these studios are going to do that. Disney is doing that too. It just seems like I think they're doing it more with the general entertainment stuff that you see like on Hulu and that kind of stuff. They're kind of sourcing that out. But Jay, what are your thoughts on that? Bigger implications, or is it just sort of like a trend right now? Where do you fall with this?
The way I've been thinking about it is I've been thinking about it in the context of it used to be that there were studios and then there were distributors or channels wherein we could watch what the studios made.
Right.
Excuse me. The difference now is that a lot of the studios have created their own distribution services. So the fact that Paramount has Paramount Plus, normally we would have just expected to see Paramount movies, sold off to a TV station at some point. We would have watched it on TV whenever that happened, right? Or sold off to a cable company. So I'm kind of more observing it from a standpoint of saying like, well, what makes the most sense? And to be honest with you, there are very few exceptions to the rule, in my opinion, that make sense for the studios not to license out their content to other streamers. Because one, it benefits somebody like Netflix. It benefits somebody like Hulu. Those are the most, in my opinion, Netflix and Hulu are the most common distributors of content, meaning that they are aggregators. They accept all of this content and you can watch all of the content on their service. But you're not necessarily, now they're obviously creating some of their own original content as well, but they feel the most like they're not studios and they're aggregated content places where we can just go watch stuff. I don't think Disney fits that bubble as much, to your point, OG, because Disney has always had the vault and it's always had the, they've always had a really close relationship with ABC, going all the way back to like when they would release, Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights or whatever.
Right.
So to me, Disney feels a little bit different in that I think that they need to retain their content on their service and not license it out as much, maybe for very specific deals. The big thing I have with Disney, and I was not upset because I was not a Willow watcher, but I was upset for the fans of Willow because I felt like Disney should, if Disney's going to license out its content, it should retain rights to have it on Disney Plus as well. So in other words, if it's going to sell it to Netflix, it shouldn't remove it from Disney Plus. It should leave it on Disney Plus and then also license it to Netflix, and Netflix can play if they want to. Now, that's not usually the deals that are being worked out because Netflix wants the exclusivity. They don't want you to go watch Disney Plus. They want you to watch it on Netflix. And I think Disney needs to stick to their guns on that because I don't think that that's fair to the people who are paying for Disney Plus. But I think for places like Paramount, for places like Peacock, even though Peacock's a pretty good service, I think that they should be licensing all their content. I think it's going to be the wave of the future is to license off all their content, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I agree because that's where the money's at. Go ahead, George.
It's almost like they're martyrs in a sense. It's like like buying and trading because it's like they're really trying to find like that inner niche of trying to get something to work. You know, I think it's just like they don't really. I don't think really these studios, the streaming services really know how to tackle or approach like this because again, it's like things are just moving. Like licensings are going to this and. Contracts are ending for this, so it got to end there. So why don't we move it over here? So it's just like it's like one big giant game, really, until it's like working out all the kinks.
100%. We got a question from Michael Ebba. Now, actually, give me a second because actually you're going to take off in a second, Jay. Right? I think there's
I
a
got
question.
about 5 minutes or so.
Okay, let me get. I think our friend maybe had a question for you, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I'll get to yours first because the question to you first because you're bouncing soon, and of course with maybe we got to do.
Cause I'm that girl that drive you crazy, but you're killing me alone. Got you thinking maybe alone. Got you thinking maybe alone. Got you thinking maybe.
There it is. Okay,
awesome.
So yeah, maybe I love the little toad. It's so great.
It's perfect.
It's good. Maybe here is asking, who would Jay want to be his co-star, and who would direct the movie?
So maybe this is a fantastic question. I don't think anybody ever wants to watch a movie that I'm starring in. So I would direct the movie. I would write and direct the movie. Well, let's just say I'm the writer. We'll say that, right? I get to choose a director. I would probably choose, it depends on the movie I'm writing, but let's just say I'm writing something that's a little bit darker and moodier. I would want David Fincher to direct it. David Fincher, I think, is a phenomenal visual artist. I think he's really great. I've been watching a few of his things lately. The Killer on Netflix was my second favorite movie of 2023. Co-star, the guy, shout out to the Bad Thoughts podcast guys, because they asked me the same question, like, who would you want to star in your film? And, the first person that came to mind was Sam Rockwell, because I love Sam Rockwell. Now, he's not necessarily like the first person you would think of as being like a major celebrity or anything like that, but I just think he's a super, super talented guy. I think one of the things that is unfortunate about Hollywood is that when you start to work with actors, there are so many talented people who just haven't been given a shot yet. You know what I mean? And if you think about it, every time I encourage people to think about the industry from the producer's standpoint whenever they get a chance, because when you think about it from their standpoint, you understand why it's so hard to make it. Because if you can cast Tom Holland versus, let's say, Spencer Harrison Levin, who was in our film, who's in No Vacancy, both these guys are crazy talented, right? But Tom Holland's done a lot of famous stuff. And if I have Tom Holland, he'll sell some tickets. He'll sell some tickets that maybe you haven't heard of Spencer before, right? And so they'll choose people that have a name because they'll make more money that way. And but I do love Sam Rockwell. I think he is somewhat famous, but I think he's phenomenal. Paul Giamatti, I love Paul Giamatti. You guys brought up Leonardo DiCaprio earlier. I definitely work with him. Definitely work with Brad Pitt. I think they're both phenomenal actors. Yeah, so many good ones. Michael Fassbender, who's a star of the Killer, dude, that guy can act like crazy. I mean, just insane. So there's a lot of people that I would absolutely love to work with.
Absolutely, great question. And Mr. Ebba, he says, "Do you guys think?" Oh, actually, Jay, you're taking off, right?
I'll do this. I'll take off after this question.
We'll do one more. Okay. Michael Ebba says, "Do you guys think we could get a Big Thunder Railroad movie? If so, what story would you like to see about it, and what actors to be in the movie?" That's interesting. Or would you even want that movie? It's interesting. If you were to do, and to kind of pivot off of what Jay just said, if you were to do like a Western, like a quality Western, though, if you're going to do this movie, I want to see it done like Tombstone or something, like this really cool Western movie, right? I would do a Western, but serious, no jokey stuff,
Yeah.
And maybe Leonardo DiCaprio is the lead. I think that would be kind of a cool little mix. But yeah, you just do a Western, and there's a lot you can do there because this is a kind of a vague theme. It's just about a railroad, really, right? I mean, you could do so much with it. You're not really pigeonholed into something. Like there's so much creative freedom there that you can kind of work with. So yeah,
I would love to see, like, as you had mentioned, Tombstone. I would love to see some of the great actors who had played in Westerns kind of be the ensemble cast for this. So I would love to see, and even to Leo DiCaprio and Kurt Russell, and I know he's up there, by the time, God willing, if they were to do this. But I would even like to see a cameo of Clint Eastwood, like just kind of like showcase the actors that really brought on those Westerns, and just kind of let them be like the initial ensemble cast where they're just kind of thrown into the mix based off of whatever the storyline that Disney would partake in for this.
And real quick, Jay, after this question, we got another quickie because it's related to you and actually about a joke we made on Twitter about Best Buy. So you got to stick around for that one.
Nice.
But go ahead and your thoughts on Big Thunder.
So let's just say I was going to pitch a Big Thunder movie. Okay. What I would pitch is that Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is a company that is shipping gold through the Rocky Mountains. And there is going to be a gang that is going to try and rob that train. And then as they try and rob that train, they mess up the brakes or whatever, and it becomes this kind of like it's moving down the tracks pretty fast, and they got to get off the train with all the gold and all that kind of stuff. That's the movie I would pitch for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And I would like to see the movie.
And that's how you know he is a filmmaker, because he came up with that right now. Like that's good, bro. Like I was like, Western with Leonardo DiCaprio. This guy's a whole story. That's fantastic.
They have such a great IP with that thing. It's not too hard to come up with the concept there.
Yeah, exactly. I actually love that concept, Jay. If I could actually tweak it a little bit, how I would add a little bit to it is that the gold, that little did they know, is actually cursed.
Oh,
so as they try to steal it, it ends up unleashing the curse, and the train becomes alive in the sense, and that's what makes it the runaway mine train in and out of it. So
right, 100%. Okay, here we go, Jay. Maybe here says, okay, last one. What was one of your first CDs you bought, and did you buy it from Best Buy? Also, did people use to line up for CDs like when people wait for an album drop? LOL.
Maybe he's like probably half my age, right? Like oh man, this is Old Man Jay. What did Old Man Jay buy at Best Buy when he was a kid? I think that the first CD I bought from Best Buy. Now, I did originally I was into the Beach Boys when I was a real young kid, but I don't think I ever bought a Beach Boys CD. I think I had Beach Boys on cassette, because Beach Boys were way older than me, right? That's my parents' decade.
Right.
But I think the first CD I ever bought from Best Buy, and this is a little bit embarrassing, was from the band Sugar Ray. And Sugar Ray had the song out at the time. What was the name of that song? It was before Every Morning. It was I can't remember the name of it, but it was a phenomenal song. And I bought their CD, and it's so different back in the day, because when you would buy a CD, you would get 12 songs, right? So it wasn't like today where you could be like, I like these 3 songs off the Blackpink album, so I'm going to buy these 3, but I don't need to buy the rest of them, No, you bought the CD and you had 12 songs, 11 of which you probably didn't care about. And I will tell you that 11 of the songs on the Sugar Ray album were shitty, and the only one that was good was the one I bought it for. But you learn your lesson. You just go buy another album.
There you go. Yeah, I'm gonna age myself. Maybe like I probably didn't even buy my CDs at Best Buy. I bought them at the warehouse.
Yes.
That's old school. That's real old school. But I was a real hip hop rap guy, and I still am actually, but also K-pop now. I can add that to my resume.
What was your first hip hop album that you bought?
I got West Side Connection. I like the pretty hard stuff. I got West Side Connection, Mac 10, Backyard Boogie.
Nice.
What else did I get? Dog Pound. I love the Dog Pound. Anything Tupac, the Notorious B.I.G. Afterlife. I just loved hip hop. I was really, really into it. So those were some of my first CDs. So I also dipped into some R&B though, man. I would get into like some Key Sweat, you know. I love Twisted, that song Twisted. Jodeci, Boys to Men. Who
Got
else?
me twisting over you.
Oh, there we go. And you got the gear for it too, George. You got the gear for it. You got all the ladies
George
twisted.
does have the gear, yeah.
You know, and then who else? I also like Selena. I like Selena a lot. So yeah, that's kind of where I was at back in the day. What about you, George?
So actually, I do remember what my the first CD that I bought at Best Buy. I mean, I had other CDs, but the one that I could actually remember physically going to Best Buy to purchase was Smash Mouth for All Star.
Oh yeah. That was a had to buy.
Yeah.
There were some that were had to buys because you're like,
And
this
again,
is a
Jay,
classic.
and again, Jay, just as you said, I literally bought that CD. I couldn't even tell you what the other songs were on that CD. I just had repeat on All Star just for that CD.
Yep. Every once in a while, you'd find a CD that had a pretty good, like for example, Blink-182 is not a great band. However, they had a lot of good songs on their CDs. Like it wasn't
Girl
just
at the
one.
Rock Show.
Yeah.
That was mine. Girl
Totally.
at the Rock
Totally.
Show.
Yeah, lots of good stuff. So,
Yep. And Jay, it was awesome having you on. We got to do more lives with you, Jay. Awesome stuff, brother.
Anytime.
We're-
I always have a
we're-
blast with you guys.
We're 3 hours, 15 minutes, and 25 seconds in. Jay, you're slacker.
I know, what a slacker. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And you guys are the best. The chat has been phenomenal. Shout outs to the entire chat. Good to see you, Slimer. Good to see you, maybe. Good to see everybody in there. Seymour. I've never been on a podcast with Seymour, or a show with Seymour. So shout out to Seymour, Michael Ebba. You guys are all awesome. Alia, of course, is always awesome. Good to see everybody. Kaylee, good to see you too. Sam,
everybody at least has to have like one show on with Seymour. It's like everyone has to take a ticket and like wait your turn. It's
yeah, exactly.
Seymour is fantastic.
All right, gentlemen. Well, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much. Thanks for showing the trailer too. By the way, I love watching the trailer. Love
absolutely.
the feedback. You guys are the best. Yeah. And we'll do another Story Geek show pretty soon. So everybody, by the time you guys finish this show, I'd love to see some more Story Geek show ideas that we can do for you guys.
Absolutely. Put them in the chat. 100%.
Yeah, put them in the chat. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Jay.
Bye.
See you, Jay.
See you later. And just so the chat knows, because it's pushing after midnight for this guy over here. He's on the East Coast, you know. He's not a dog pound gangster like I am over here. He's
Oh my gosh.
He's an East Coaster. So it's getting kind of late. So we're probably only going to go for like another 20 minutes or so. But Mariana Barbara says, Charmine obeyed Chinoy's comments. Going viral is just ridiculous. Just going to make a story and just make a good story and movie. Her comments sound petty, especially towards past and former female Star Wars TV directors. Yeah, that's the thing. I just wish that like, and that's kind of like what Jay was talking about, right, George? Where it's like the PR at Disney has really been a mess, right? It's great to have female directors. It's great to have female leads, and that's awesome. But it's just the way Disney packages this stuff, and they just kind of walk into the outrage machine
it's like they have a common concept that is really good, you know, and then when they go to put it on paper for the execution and how they handle it, again, what Jay said with the PR, it's like you can handle it a lot better there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Alia here is referring to my vote. He's supposed to be annoying, and it's great. Ha ha ha. Roger Rabbit. So he's supposed to be annoying. I agree, and that's what makes the movie work, because it creates this like hesitation with Eddie Valiant to help this guy. He's annoying. Right. Like I don't want him around me, and that's what makes that interaction more interesting. It wouldn't be as fun if he was just like chill.
Exactly.
And there wasn't that, you know, animosity, or not animosity, but annoyance factor, you know. And then let me see here. Maybe here says, oh my God, sorry, Jay. He's supposed to be annoying. And he's just the goofy boyfriend with the hot wafu. That's fantastic. And then she says here, continues, without Jessica, he's annoying. But since he has Jessica Rabbit, it's okay. Yeah, I would agree. She kind of offsets him, you know. Yeah. And she's not bad. She's just drawn that way. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I mean, come on, you know. Let me see here. Man, I'm just trying to find, because we're only going to be doing this for another 20 minutes or so. I'm going to try to find some questions here. Kaylee with 2 E's and George with, like 7 E's. George, when is the next Phil Collins concert, George? You got tickets yet, brother?
Man, Kaylee, I wish. I mean, I remember actually he did come to my city for his farewell tour. Unfortunately, I didn't get to make that. I mean, tickets were outrageously expensive just for nosebleeder seats.
Right.
Was like $200 to $300, and it's
Oh my God.
But I mean, if I could have seen Phil Collins in person, that would have been awesome. As I said, I'm a huge Phil Collins fan, and as I said, he's a beast on the drums.
Yeah. Alia Aloha says here, I'm a Gore wimp. Well, then you're probably not a Steamboat Willie fan right now. So I'm gonna be missing out on Deadpool 3. We'll have to depend on New Rockstars and Screen Crush. Yeah, I don't know. I like Deadpool. I think he's really funny. And Slimer here says, okay, my top 5 in no order. Furiosa, that was one of Jay's picks. Dune Part 2. That's interesting, Slimer. I couldn't get into Dune. I don't know what it was about that movie.
Couldn't either. I couldn't either. I tried.
Couldn't get into it. Ghostbusters, that's dope. Beetlejuice, Jenny Ortega, I think she's gonna crush it in that. And Joker Folle Adu, I think. I don't know.
Honestly, Slimer, out of all the movies you said, I'm really surprised that Ghostbusters is on your list. I never would have thought you would have liked that movie.
Yeah, exactly, dude. That's like way out there. Like, wow, he likes Ghostbusters? That's wild. And maybe here it says Jasmine is a stunner. Hey, maybe is that a reference to a Ning Ning in drama? K-pop fans will know what that is. Maybe definitely knows what that is. Let me see here. Let me see. I'm just finding the next question. Oh, here we go. Sam Chat. Did any of you consider working for Disney, whether it's at a studio or the parks, or did you guys prefer to enjoy Disney as fans? Yeah, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Disney animator. I mean, I think that was sounded like the coolest job. I'd be fine also working at the parks. I don't know. I like people. I like to interact. Obviously, I do this. I like the interaction. So I think that could be fun. So I'm open to it. I don't need to enjoy it from afar. I can kind of do it both ways. What about you, George?
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 jobs that I had in mind. 2 dream jobs that I would be completely settled for. If I was to work in the parks, I would want to be a VIP tour guide. As I said, I'm a people person. I love dealing with people. I love being out there in the crowds and dealing with that. And honestly, it's like, who wouldn't want to see this every day? I mean, come on, you're paying for some VIP experience here. It's like, come on, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
And then my top tier job of all time would be to be a show concept writer for Walt Disney Imagineering, for which I actually went for my degree in creative writing for entertainment, solely for the purpose just to have in my back pocket, just because you never know. You never know. Keep on dreaming.
You never know. Sam Chat, awesome trailer. Yes. No Vacancy looks really cool. Really, really cool. And if you haven't seen the interview I did with Jay and the main actress in that short film, Colleen, she is amazing. We had a fantastic conversation about it. Check it out in the Story Geeks playlist here on the channel. Really, really cool stuff. Let me see here. Michael Ebba, Jay, is your short film going to have a lot of behind the scenes or the making of content? If not, will that content ever be released? Ebba, he's not here right now. I would go ahead and DM him that question. I do apologize, brother, but he's no longer here to answer that. Maybe he says, Star Wars nerd gotta stick together in these rough times. Yeah, I would agree. Very, very, very dark days indeed. Slimer here says, yeah, that trailer is clean. I love the color grading and the mood lighting. The old motel gives off psycho vibes. Total psycho vibes. Total. We talked about the Universal Tram Tour earlier today in the show. It gives off when you park there and he comes after you with the knife.
Yes, it does.
Totally.
Yeah, it kind of has that mixture of psycho kind of blending with Stranger Things kind of vibe. I love that.
Yeah. Slimer here says, I want to see a 420 to Yuma movie starring Cheech and Chong. That's freaking awesome. And maybe here has met Cheech. She has met Cheech. That is awesome.
Ooh, met Cheech Marin.
That is dope. That deserves a Hold on, I gotta find it. Give me a second. That deserves a
Yeah, buddy.
100%. And then Seymour Duck here with a cute little ducky. Seymour, it's always awesome having you in the chat. We gotta get Seymour on the show with Jay. We gotta talk shop.
Yeah, Seymour has to get on a show with Jay. Has to get on with Slimer. I don't think he hasn't done a show with Slimer, right?
I don't think. Yeah, that's right. He hasn't done a Slimer show either. So we got to catch Jay up. Absolutely. You know, more Jay the better. You know, more Jay the better. And then I think we'll take one more from Kaylee. Love the Beach Boys. Shout out. Are you a Beach Boys guy, George?
I am. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. California Girls. Kokomo. I love. Yes.
It's in your playlist right next to the Phil Collins.
Yeah. It's actually very funny. If you were to see my playlist of how eclectic my songs are, like they're just all over the place. Like I got like soft rock, R&B. I like it's just all over the place.
Wow. And then you got OG over here. There we go. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Kaylee, Maybe, Lord Jonathan, Jonas, Jay Campbell. Gosh, I know I'm going to forget people. Well, obviously Jay Shear, T.S. Wade, Matthew Murr, just the chat. You guys and gals are always amazing. George and I have a really good time with these live shows. Like we really do. And so we're going to keep doing them. And we're going to have a good time. And so I just want to thank everybody for all the support. And it's been 3.5 hours. That's a long stream. But time flies when you're having fun.
Yes.
So George, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, and then you're going to help me decide what drop we're going to end on.
All right. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There we go. That's another one, man.
That's another one. I have a lot of Michael Jackson songs on my playlist.
Absolutely. Okay, so what drop are we gonna do for the outro? We're gonna do. I can do Family Guy. I can do Drunk Chewy. I can do.
Honestly, I'm in a little bit of a mood for some Carl's Jr.
Are you? You want some Carl's? Okay.
I'll take some
Carl's. We haven't done the Carl's drop in a while, and Showcase isn't even here, so this is unusual. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're gonna end it with some Carl's Jr. Give me just a second. Let me just make sure that I got the right clip. Okay, perfect. We're gonna end it with some Carl's Jr. I want to thank again everybody in the chat. Really, really good time. We're gonna Paint the Night. We're gonna do this again, very, 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 very soon. Actually, unlike Paint the Night, we're actually gonna do this again soon.
Exactly. You know? Yes. There you go.
We're actually gonna do it. But thank you all so much for watching. OG55, and as always, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye, bye, everybody.